Chapter 424. Potato? Can it be eaten? Tang Xiaoxi looked at him with wide eyes. Yes, it can be eaten. It tastes pretty good after cooking. It has high calories and can withstand hunger. It's a very good staple food. Wait a moment, I need to confirm if this is a real potato. As she spoke, Lin Mu lightly crushed a potato and spread the juice on her palm. She said, Lulu, come out and help me analyze if this is a potato and if it can be eaten. Yes, brother. The beautiful elf official flew up and circled around Lin Mu's hand before returning to Yihai. She said, 29% protein, 194% carbohydrate, 3% fat, 31% dietary fiber, and many other vitamins and cellulose. The overall composition is confirmed to be a potato and can be eaten. Genetic analysis shows that it belongs to the potato family and is considered a close relative of the potato. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Then I'll continue sleeping, brother. Commander, are you really going to eat something dug out of the ground? Wei Chou said in shock. Yes. Lin Muyu casually picked a few potatoes and placed them in a bag on the side of the warhorse. She said, at this time, do you choose to follow the ancient teachings and starve to death, or do you choose to eat and subdue the savage tribe? Wei Chou smiled. This subordinate will listen to Commander. If Commander wants to eat, this subordinate will eat. Tang Zhen and the others were still in a daze. Lin Muyu said, what are you waiting for? Everyone dismount and pick as much as you can. Bring a batch of potatoes back to camp and cook and eat them. Then, send more people to dig potatoes in Butterfly Valley. There are potatoes everywhere in the valley and it will be enough for the army to eat for a month. It will be enough for the demon race to survive this spring. A fox general was very excited. Commander, is what you said true? Yes, quickly pick them. Yes. Everyone dismounted. Each person dug up a dozen kilograms of potatoes and carried them on the backs of their horses. Then, they jolted back to camp to taste the potatoes. Why would people care so much when they were about to starve to death? Just like Shihua in Winterfrost City, he could even eat human flesh. What else could he not eat? At lunchtime, smoke curled up from the chimneys of the spiritual fire department. Pot after pot of potatoes with chili and salt were served. Lin Muyu accompanied Tang Xiaoxi, each holding an empty bowl as they waited for this military meal. When the huge potatoes were placed in the bowl, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. It smells so good. Is it really edible? Don't worry. Lin Muyu took the lead and swallowed half of it in one gulp. It was almost scalded to death. She ate it with tears in her eyes. Tang Xiaoxi tasted the soup mouthful by mouthful and seemed to be able to taste the sweetness within. After eating a fist-sized potato, she drank the soup and put down her bowl and chopsticks with great satisfaction. In the distance, a group of starving soldiers were also fighting to eat this underground food. Not only were the potatoes delicious, but they also provided a lot of energy. They were very suitable for soldiers to eat. By noon, none of those who had eaten the potatoes had any problems. Thus, Tang Zhen happily led over 10,000 soldiers to Butterfly Valley to collect food. This way, the food problem had been solved. When Jin Xiaotong's food arrived, the situation should have been settled. In Coiling Dragon Valley, goo-goo, goo-goo, the sound of rumbling stomachs could be heard. The great wilderness god sat down on a green rock. Beside her, Prince Huangxi was stewing a pot of wild vegetable soup. He said with a sorrowful expression, This wild vegetable is not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Royal Father, are we really going to be trapped here? The weapons of the humans are so powerful. Our warriors are unable to charge through. The great wilderness god's face was pale. He said, It's all my fault. I led my people to cross the desert and come here. I didn't think that there would be such a powerful army on the other side of the desert. It's all my fault, Huangxi said. Royal Father, you can't be blamed for this. The number of people in our tribe is increasing, but the land is decreasing. Last year, over 10,000 people starved to death. If Royal Father didn't lead the army here, I'm afraid that these people would also starve to death. This is a calamity for our great wilderness tribe. It has nothing to do with Royal Father's decision. Son, do you think That Lin Muyu can be trusted? Lin Muyu? That person with the golden sword. Oh, he's very strong. I can feel that he's very strong from his aura. Huangshi frowned. Royal Father, why are you suddenly asking this? The great wilderness god said, that night, Lin Muyu told me that as long as our great wilderness tribe submitted to his empire, he would give us food and even let us settle down here. Huangshi was stunned. He gritted his teeth and said, no, our great wilderness tribe has roamed the wilderness for tens of thousands of years and defeated many powerful opponents. Royal Father, have you forgotten? We have defeated the Nushi nation, the hard-footed army, and the Iron Mountain dwarves. These races have already bowed to our great wilderness tribe. Why should we submit to those weak humans? Son, you're right. The great wilderness god sighed. His eyes shone with a strong light. He said, this king has roamed the wilderness for his entire life and defeated many powerful enemies. But now we have reached the end of the road. I have no other choice. I can either starve to death with the 30,000 warriors behind me, or I can only submit to the humans. What choice do you want me to make? Huangshi clenched his fists. Royal Father, I am willing to advance and retreat with you. We will kill our way out. I would rather be shot to death than give up the dignity of the warriors of the great wilderness tribe. Good child, the great wilderness god patted Prince Huangshi's shoulder and said, unfortunately, Royal Father is old and no longer has such lofty aspirations. I must consider the future of the tribe. If all the elite warriors of the great wilderness tribe die in this valley, then it will be my fault. Huangshi remained silent. The great wilderness god said, how many people starved to death today? 71, Royal Father. Sai, have we found new food? The warriors have already dug 3 feet into the ground, but they still can't find anything edible. Many of the warriors swallowed the soft soil but died because it was too hard to digest. The great wilderness god said, this king has decided to test Lin Muyu's credibility. Send someone out of the valley and tell Lin Muyu that if she wants to gain our trust, she must first send us 30,000 kilograms of food. Yes, Royal Father. At dusk, with Lin Muyu's permission, a total of 30,000 kilograms of potatoes and rations were transported into the valley by the unarmed warriors of the great wilderness tribe. Under the setting sun, the armor of the imperial generals outside the valley was suffused with a moving radiance. Wei Qiu asked with a puzzled expression, Commander, our own food is already very difficult. Why do we still have to give food to this group of barbarians? Didn't you say that you want to starve them, let them have a taste of hunger, and then force them to surrender? Yes, I think they have already tasted hunger. Otherwise, someone as arrogant as the great wilderness god wouldn't beg us for food. Lin Muyu's eyes lit up. This time, he is testing me to see if I really have the intention to accept them. Moreover, I want the great wilderness tribe's warriors to be alive and kicking, not people who starve to death. Be patient, they will surrender soon. At that time, we will need to prepare more food. Yes, this subordinate understands. Tang Jin happily said, Congratulations, Commander, we are about to reclaim the great wilderness tribe. Lin Muyu didn't look too happy. Instead, her handsome face showed some worry. I just don't know how the war between the Empire and the demon race is progressing. I hope it goes smoothly. I hope that Xiao Yin and Brother Feng are fine. Commander, don't worry. Her Highness the Empress is the ruler of the world and will be protected by the gods. If the gods were protecting them, good people like Chu Huayin and Qin Lei wouldn't have died. Lin Muyu looked up at the sky and couldn't help but sigh. I wonder when these wars will end. Wei Qiu was stunned. Commander, are you tired of these endless wars? How can I not be tired? Lin Muyu gently grasped the hilt of her sword. Who doesn't want to be by the side of their loved ones? Who doesn't want to live a carefree life like Xiao Yao? It's just that as long as the war continues, such days will never come. Tang Xiaoxi faintly nodded. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked towards the jungle in the east. No one knew what she was thinking. Night slowly fell. The sound of rushing water came from the tributary of the Daojiang River in Sangnan Province. The bright moon refracted beautiful rays of light in the sky, shining on this once extremely beautiful land. The light of the torch illuminated Qin Yin's beautiful face. She looked at the light of the bonfires in the demon race's camp on the east bank and couldn't help but sigh. Your Highness. Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, "This subordinate will keep watch. Your Highness should rest early." "No, I don't want to sleep yet." Qin Yin looked at the opposite bank and asked, "General Feng, what do you think the demon race's plan is? It has already been more than 10 days and they haven't made a move. They are only mobilizing their troops. Which city will they attack?" "This general doesn't know." Feng Jixing. Qian Feng is an extremely intelligent fellow, maybe. He is plotting something. The only thing we can do is to sit back and observe the changes, and then strike after the enemy strikes. The steel wall is basically completed. Your Highness, don't worry, the demon race is not good at attacking cities. Even if they have siege weapons, they might not be able to climb up the wall. As long as we guard this line of defense, there will naturally be no worries. How is the war in the Endless Forest? Very smooth. I believe that you will be able to defeat the great savage race's army in one fell swoop. That's good. The moonlight was like water, shining on the earth. On both sides of the tributary of the Daojiang River, the light of the fire connected. This war would determine the situation and fate of the shattered Cauldron Realm continent for the next 100 years. Chapter 425. Early in the morning, a thick fog shrouded both sides of the river. It was impossible to see what the demons on the other side were doing. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of wings flapping in the sky. The winged people were the scouts of the demon race. "Bring me my bow." On a small path outside the fortress, Qin Yin was dressed in a well-ironed dark blue female military uniform of the Empire, with a blue-purple Yinghua Empress robe draped over her back. She took a bow from a servant, and her beautiful eyes flashed. She suddenly drew the bow and aimed at the sky. She couldn't see anything in the fog, so she could only rely on the sound to determine the location. With a whoosh, the arrow left the bow, and the next moment, a winged person screamed in pain and fell into the forest in front of her. Your Highness has great archery skills. Feng Jixing couldn't help but praise. Qin Yin stood there suspiciously. It seemed that after cultivating the dragon-slaying art, her spiritual sense became much clearer. Chu, who was riding on the horse, smiled and stroked his beard. Your Highness doesn't need to be suspicious. The dragon-slaying art originates from the dragon race. The ancient holy dragon race is much more sensitive to aura than humans. So your Highness's perception of aura and spiritual sense is probably comparable to you who cultivates the spirit pulse art. However, your Highness's archery skills are really good. Qin Yin's eyes turned red. This archery skills was taught to me by father. Chu and Feng Jixing were silent for a while. Everyone slowly walked on the small path. A total of 5,000 imperial soldiers were protecting them. In addition to the 3 experts, Chu, Feng Jixing, and Qin Yan, even if Luo Lan came personally, she wouldn't be able to do anything to Qin Yin. The river flowed endlessly. Qin Yin spurred her horse forward, and the dragon-shaped god-binding chains wrapped around her body. She was so majestic that a group of imperial guards did not even dare to raise their heads to look at the beautiful empress. Qin Yin suddenly got off the horse. She stepped on the grass beside the river and led the horse forward. The horse wanted to eat grass, but she didn't let it. She led it all the way, making Feng Jixing smile. Hua. Suddenly, water splashed out from the bottom of the empress's boots. Qin Yin couldn't help but exclaim. She stood there dumbfounded, looking thoughtful. "What's wrong, Your Highness?" Feng Jixing asked. Qin Yin frowned and said, "When I passed by here yesterday, the water level of the Daojiang River hadn't reached this level yet. Today, it has reached this level, and the water level has risen by at least 1 meter. Even in spring, the water level shouldn't rise so quickly, right?" "Indeed, it's not that fast." Feng Jixing smiled. "But, what did Your Highness think of?" "Yes." Qin Yin frowned and said, "General Feng, I've thought of a very frightening situation. Do you think the demon race will fill up the river and try to use the heavy equipment to attack the steel wall? If the water level has really risen, I'm afraid they're already doing it." This, Feng Jisheng's body trembled and his face turned pale. Someone, immediately spur the horses to search along the river downstream. Once the demon race has any unusual movements, immediately report to me. Yes, Commander. A group of Imperial Army cavalry galloped away. It was common sense to cut off the river downstream and raise the water level upstream. Feng Jisheng and Qin Yin's heart turned cold. They must not look down on Chen Feng. They must not look down on the wisdom of the demon race's commander. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. The blazing sun dispersed the fog. At noon, an Imperial Army cavalry galloped along the river bank and looked at the opposite shore with a dumbfounded expression. There, a large number of armor demons were hurrying back and forth. They were carrying sacks of mud that weighed hundreds of kilograms on their shoulders as they galloped and threw the sacks into the river. The demon race was indeed filling up the river. Half of the river had already been cut off, and this Imperial Army armored cavalryman's face was pale as he retreated and shouted loudly, "Quickly send a letter to Commander Feng. The demon race is filling up the river 20 miles west of Mountain Forest Town's crossing." After noon, a large number of human troops gathered by the river bank. Qin Yin, Feng Jisheng, and Xiang Yu personally supervised the battle. The Imperial soldiers with heavy shields formed a line of defense by the river bank and watched the other party fill up the river. "No, we cannot let them do as they wish." Feng Jisheng's expression turned cold and said, "Your Highness, please mobilize the navy and order Bailey Tsang to go out to battle and destroy the demon race's dam. Otherwise, once the dam is completed, it will be our disaster." Qin Yin turned and said, "Bailey Tsang, immediately lead the navy to battle and use crossbows and arrows to disrupt the demon race's dam-building plan." "Yes, Your Highness." The war drums rumbled and dozens of naval warships docked on the shore slowly sailed around the dam. The deck was full of archers with longbows. They were about 50 meters away from the dam. Tens of thousands of arrows were shot at the same time. For a time, the armor demons on the dam fell into the water, and the tyrannical steel arrows of the crossbows could penetrate the shells of the demon race and kill them directly. The armor demons on the dam were in chaos. At this moment, a high-ranking demon race general, who was enshrouded in blood demon breath, rode his horse, raised his long sword and shouted in the demon race's language. Soon, the armor demons picked up a shield that shone under the sun and blocked around the dam. Suddenly, most of the arrows were bounced off, but the demon race's sacks were still falling into the water, constantly cutting off the Rice River tributary. "Not good," Xiang Yu gnashed his teeth and said, "the demon race actually came up with such a despicable method. It's really hateful." Feng Zhangsheng frowned and said, "Pass down the order, let the navy throw barrels filled with black beech oil on the dam with catapults, and then shoot arrows. I'd like to see if these armor demons can continue to build the dam in the flames." Soon after, catapults were launched from the battleships one after another. Barrels filled with black beech oil fell into the embankment and into the water. Those that fell into the embankment were all broken and overflowed. Those that fell into the water floated on the surface of the water without being damaged. The next moment, dozens of battleships launched tens of thousands of arrows at the same time. Immediately, the armor demons on the embankment were caught in a sea of fire. An armored demon abruptly scooped up a barrel of black beech oil from the water as he slightly bent his body and abruptly threw it out. With a loud sound bang, the barrel smashed onto the deck of the battleship. At the same time, the high-class demon general raised his longbow and released a rocket precisely onto the battleship. In a split second, the black beech oil was ignited and exploded. As a result, the entire battleship was covered with flames. As a result, the Marines fell into the water one after another. Qin Yin frowned slightly and remained silent. Her heart became heavier and heavier. The demon race's tactic of filling up the river was almost unsolvable. Once they succeeded, they could only rely on the steel wall to protect the imperial capital. They stopped building the dam. Su Muyun said with narrowed eyes, "But it's only temporary." Su'er said, "Your Highness, what should we do?" "The black beech oil won't burn for too long." Qin Yin sighed softly and said, "Pass down my order. Stockpile a large number of arrows, stones and other defensive equipment on the steel wall. Prepare to rely on the steel wall to defend against the demon race. All the naval warships immediately leave the tributary of Daojiang River and go to the main stream of Daojiang River to wait for orders. Otherwise, once the river is blocked, all our warships will fall into the hands of the demon race. Yes, Your Highness. Bailey Tsang cupped his fists and said respectfully. Qin Yin then looked at Feng Jixing and said, General Feng, the Navy will also listen to your orders. Look for opportunities. Once the demon race is negligent, the Navy warships can directly dock at the East Bank and send troops to burn the demon race's granary. Once the food is cut, the demon race will not be able to hold on for too long. Yes, Your Highness, I will follow your orders. Feng Jixing took a deep look at the flowing Daojiang River. West of the Empire, endless forest, coiling Dragon Valley. A group of barbarian race warriors surrounded the great barbarian god of wilderness as they slowly walked out of the valley. This was the first formal meeting since the start of the war. The war drums were very gentle, showing that both sides wanted to make peace. Lin Muyu dismounted and brought Tang Xiaoxi, Tang Jin, Wei Chou and the others to greet them. Both sides stood in the open space in the forest. Long time no see, Lord Chief. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said with a smile. The great barbarian god of wilderness seemed to have aged a lot. Her expression was a bit dejected as she smiled and said, Commander Lin Muyu, the great barbarian race will never be conquered. But today, we can establish a friendship and alliance between our two races. Of course. Lin Muyu smiled and said, although the great barbarian race and the human race are different, we are all humans and have the same bloodline. If the great barbarian race is in trouble, the human empire will naturally not stand idly by. Thank you for your kind intentions, Commander. The great barbarian god of wilderness smiled and said, what Commander means is, the barbarian race can stay in the endless forest to recuperate, but the condition is that we provide you with excellent warriors. Is that right? The barbarian race warriors are all descendants of the ancient barbarian god. Our bloodline is very pure, and the life of every barbarian race warrior is very precious. Commander should understand, right? I understand. I will do my best to ensure their safety. Once a barbarian race warrior dies, I will naturally compensate you with enough gold coins. According to the human empire's gold hub coins, how many gold hub coins will be given to us after a barbarian race warrior dies in battle? 100, Lin Muyu said. 100. The great barbarian god of wilderness frowned and said, their father gave birth to them and their mother raised them. They are all living beings and could have lived carefree lives. Are they only worth 100 gold hub coins? Lin Muyu said, the empire is at war and the economy is very poor. I already have enough. The compensation for a soldier who dies in battle is only 50 gold hub coins. But the total population of the barbarian race has shrunk from more than 10 million to less than 1 million. We can't afford any more losses. Moreover, this is a war between the humans and the demon race. It has nothing to do with our barbarian race. The patriarch was like an old fox, constantly exploiting the pitiful conqueror of Lin Muyu. How about this 150 gold hub coins, no more? Lin Muyu nodded. Commander is benevolent. The patriarch continued, the barbarian race is descended from the ancient barbarian god. We have a proud bloodline and will never submit to any empire. Commander should understand, right? I understand. Lin Muyu cupped her hands and said, don't worry, the barbarian race will move to the south of the endless forest. We will give you land and form an independent country. You will still be the ruler of the barbarian race, and no one can order you around. Our relationship will only be that of friends. The patriarch broke into a smile. Commander, you really are the savior of our barbarian race. Chapter 426. In the afternoon, an army of 5,000 soldiers from the great wilderness tribe slowly walked out of coiling Dragon Valley. Everyone was so hungry that their faces were sallow and their bodies emaciated. This was the advance team that the old fox patriarch had sent out. In reality, it was also a team used to test Lin Muyu's loyalty. This advance team would first settle down in the endless forest. Only after that would the great wilderness god lead the other 20,000 soldiers out of Coiling Dragon Valley. But before that, Lin Muyu had to be responsible for the food and clothing of all the wilderness warriors. A cool breeze blew through the forest, causing the pure white royal cloak to flutter. Lin Muyu rested her hand on the hilt of her sword as she rode alongside Tang Xiaoxi. On the side, Wei Chou and Sidusun led the 10,000 heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp to protect them. They would be escorting the 5,000 wilderness tribe warriors to settle down in the endless forest. Furthermore, they would be in the forest's no man's land. They couldn't live too close to the demon race, so Lin Muyu arranged for them to settle down in the forest between the demon race and the national army. This place was suitable for planting, and the national army could see it. If the wilderness tribe did anything strange, the national army could immediately take action. This war of conquest had nothing to do with justice. It was just a matter of making use of each other. Lin Muyu and the great wilderness god knew this very well. The army of the demon-suppressing mountain pass brought tents and a small amount of food. The first thing they needed to do was to give these wilderness tribe warriors a place to rest. Lin Muyu rode her horse to the clearing. The place was filled with trees that shaded the sky, which could shelter them from the wind and rain. On the other hand, the clearing in the distance was mostly soil with very few rocks, which was suitable for farming. We'll set up camp in the forest. Then, we'll gather some potatoes and plant them in the sunny open space on the right. This should help them settle down and reproduce quickly, Lin Muyu said confidently. Sidusun smiled. Commander, this wilderness tribe army is made up of men. There aren't any women. It's probably impossible for them to reproduce. It doesn't matter. Once they settle down, the great wilderness god will naturally arrange for people to migrate the distant wilderness tribe and let them come to the empire to reproduce. Yes, this subordinate understands. Is Xiaotong's grain transport team here yet? Soon. I'll definitely arrive before dusk. That's great. Lin Muyu was deeply worried. Since he came to the Forest of Infinity, his biggest problem was food. His mind was almost filled with food, and food. He was almost driven crazy by the food. The Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue could send about 200,000 jin of food every day, but it was far from enough to feed the 200,000 soldiers. Especially after the barbarian tribe decided to surrender, each young and strong barbarian tribe warrior could eat as much as 3 human soldiers. It was so much so that Lin Muyu had to consider the food rations of the nearly 300,000 soldiers in the Forest of Infinity. Including the civilians of the demon tribe who had lost their source of food, the daily consumption of food was at least 700,000 jin. At dusk, Wei Chou walked over holding a piece of paper and said, Young Lady Xiao Tang has sent you's letter. The grain transport team from Lanyan City is only 10 miles away from here. All right, come with me to welcome them. Yes. The Forest of Infinity was not peaceful. Although Tang Xiaoxi was the ruler of the demon tribe in name, it did not mean that every little demon listened to her orders. Therefore, there were often cases of wild snake people and lizard people sneak attacking the human army's grain transport team. There were a few cases a few days ago. The cavalry of the Longdan army camp galloped forward under the leadership of Lin Muyu. After 7 or 8 miles, they saw a convoy moving forward with difficulty on the winding forest road. The banners were the banners of the Imperial Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce, and they were escorted by the guards of the temple. There were about 50 of them, and one of them looked familiar. It was Zhou Yao, one of the deacons of the temple. Zhou Yao rode forward and cupped his fists respectfully. Great Deacon, this subordinate is here to transport the grain. Lin Muyu was overjoyed. Great Deacon Zhou has worked hard. This time, how much grain has been transported? We used large carts to transport the grain. Each cart weighs 2,000 caddies. There are a total of 300 carts, which is a total of 600,000 caddies of grain. Young Lady Xiao Tang almost put down her business in order to collect the grain. But if this batch of grain can help Great Deacon, then our efforts will not be in vain. Zhou Yao said sincerely, Great Deacon, the people of Lanyan City are not having a good time. We really can't collect more grain. Young Lady Xiaotang said that the first batch today is 600,000 caddies. In the future, we can only collect around 200,000 caddies of grain every day. It will take a lot of manpower. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, "It's really hard on you. Let's go and send the grain to the camp and then distribute it." Wei Chou happily nodded his head. Situ Sin frowned and said, "Commander, forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly. This much grain is still not enough. I know. From today on, everyone's rations will be halved. In any case, the battle in the endless forest has ended. The intensity of training will be halved. Everyone will eat less and get through this period." Sidusen cupped his hands and said, "Commander, this subordinate actually has another idea." What idea?" Lin Muyu's eyes lit up. The corner of Situ-sen's mouth rose. "It's just that this method might be a bit extreme. It might even violate the Empire's military laws." "It's fine, speak." This subordinate has eyes and ears in the Lanyan City area and is very well informed. I know that there are many mountain bandits hidden in the mountains around Demon Subduing Pass. These mountain bandits usually commit all sorts of evil and often rob people from all directions. The amount of grain they have hoarded in the mountains isn't just a star and a half. This group of rats has raised themselves to be fat and oily. Now it's time to slaughter them and eat their meat. As long as Commander gives the order, this subordinate will immediately lead the brothers of the Second Army up the mountain to exterminate the mountain bandits and bring back their grain. Moreover, their mountain strongholds will definitely have a lot of gold coins. With these gold coins, we can buy food in the villages within Demon Subduing Pass to solve our urgent needs. Situ-sen looked carefully at Lin Muyu and said, "This subordinate knows that Commander is the foster son of the previous emperor and the elder brother of Her Highness Qin Yin. Perhaps you will despise this subordinate for doing such a dirty thing." "No, there's nothing dirty about this matter." Lin Muyu was in high spirits as she patted Situ-sen's shoulder. "General Sin, if you can really complete this task, I will give you a great merit. I can also recommend you to join the Imperial Guard and receive the special honor of the Imperial Guard." Situ-sen was overjoyed. "Really? Commander won't lie to me? When have I ever lied to you? But when exterminating the mountain bandits, try to minimize our own losses." "Yes, this subordinate understands. I only ask for the commander's token to allow this subordinate to mobilize the army." Lin Muyu took a bronze tiger tally from Deputy Commander Wei Chou and directly handed it to Sidu Senior. "I'll grant you 10,000 troops. Go, I'll wait for your good news in the endless forest." "Don't worry, Commander. Sidu-sen will not disappoint you." In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. The endless forest was quiet. Everywhere was the scene of birds chirping and flowers fragrant. The wild beasts that hibernated in the caves and crypts woke up and began a new year in the forest. In particular, the awakening of some herbivores seemed to have added a lot of vitality to the forest. The Ministry of Revenue's grain was continuously delivered every day. The grain collected by Jin Xiaotang was delivered every 2 days. Together with the large amount of potatoes dug out in Butterfly Valley, it was barely enough to feed 300,000 troops. The next thing to do was to wait for the potatoes planted by the Longdan army camp and the savages to be harvested early. Early in the morning, Wei Chao's respectful voice came from outside the tent. "Commander, Prince Huangxi requests an audience." "Let him come in." "Yes." Wei Chou lifted the curtain and walked in with the burly prince of the savages. Huangxi originally only had contempt for humans, but now he could not help but be amazed by their planting skills. After seeing Lin Muyu's ability, he also understood how powerful human cultivators were. Their strength was not something that could be compared with pure brute force. Lin Muyu, who was in the midst of refining his star art, slowly retracted the source of his energy. Rays of blue starlight surrounded his body. He slowly opened his eyes, a pair of clear eyes filled with divine light. He smiled and said, "Prince Huangxi, what's the matter?" Huangxi smiled. "Commander Yu, the first batch of potatoes we planted has been in the soil for so many days. Why haven't they sprouted yet?" Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. "Don't be anxious. Just make the soil soft and moist. This kind of potato can be planted throughout the year except for winter. You need to be patient. The plant's growth speed is not as fast as you think. Yes. Huang Shi nodded and said with a smile, Commander Yu, Father will be leading the rest of the people to settle down here tomorrow. The tents and wooden houses are not enough. Please prepare more tents to shelter the warriors of the barbarian tribe from the wind and rain. You also know that although the warriors of the barbarian tribe are brave, they are not good at farming and weaving. I know. Oh yes, Prince Huang. Commander Yu, what's the matter? And according to my agreement with the great desolate god, we will help you survive in the endless forest. In exchange, you will give me a force of 5,000 people. I need the most valiant and ferocious desolate tribe warriors. Prince, can you help me choose? If you are willing, I will appoint you as the commander of this troop. Ah! Huang Shi was overjoyed. Commander Yu, you are willing to let me personally lead the warriors? The condition is that you have to choose the strongest 5,000 people for me. Don't worry, Huang Shi will do it. Prince Huang Shi imitated the human army and cupped his fists. Wei Chou could not help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Huang Shi stared at him with his round eyes. Wei Chou waved his hand and held back his laughter. Nothing. Your Highness, do you have anything else? If not, you can leave now. Oomph. Prince Huang Shi turned around and cupped his fists at Lin Muyu. Then he walked out of the door with his head held high like a proud prince. Is there any news from Cangnan province? Lin Muyu watched Huang Shi leave before she asked lightly. Wei Chou's expression was solemn. Yes, Qianfeng is planning to fill up the river. They plan to cut off the flow of the river and create a man-made dam. Then they will cross the river and attack the steel wall. Ah! Lin Muyu was stunned. She frowned and didn't say anything. Chapter 427. Commander, Sidu Sin is back. Sidu Sen's loud voice came from outside the commander's tent. Lin Muyu was overjoyed when she heard this voice and flew out to welcome him. Outside the tent, Wei Chou, Feng Shi, Sidu Shui and the others were all there. Sidu Sin was still on his horse. He dismounted with his sword and cupped his hands respectfully. Sidu Sin greets Commander. General Sin, how is the mission going? Lin Muyu smiled and asked. Commander, please look over there. Sidu Sin pointed into the distance. There were carriages piled high with goods on the forest path. Sidu Sin wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled excitedly. These bandits are really rich. We destroyed 5 bandit strongholds in 3 days and seized at least 700,000 gold coins. In addition, there are close to 500,000 jin of rations and all kinds of rare treasures. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Good, I will remember this great merit for you. Sidu Shui smiled lightly. Brother, if there is something like this in the future, please call me along. I also want to make a contribution. Otherwise, Commander will think that I am just a freeloader. Good. Sidu Sin looked at Sidu Shui dotingly. This gaze actually gave Lin Muyu the illusion that it was like the way Chu Huaying looked at Chu Yao. Perhaps all siblings in the world were like this? She couldn't help but feel emotional and her body trembled slightly. Commander Yu, are you all right? Sidu Shui was surprised. I'm fine. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, General Sen has worked hard. I will set up a banquet for you in the tent tonight. Oh right, Prince Huang Shi has already chosen 5,000 barbarian tribe elites. My plan can be carried out now. Where is Su Jiantao? Among the generals, Su Jiantao stepped forward and said, This general is here. Lin Muyu said, I'll have to trouble you this time. According to the height and physique of the barbarian warriors, make them a set of armor, a shield, and a spear. After 2 hours, give me all the measurements and blueprints. Yes, your subordinate will do as you say. Su Jiantao's eyes were filled with confidence. Returning to the commander's tent, Lin Muyu sat in the commander's seat. There were pieces of parchment spread out in front of her. Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were also placed to the side. Wei Chou could not help but smile. Commander, you are still practicing calligraphy? How is this calligraphy? Lin Muyu smiled and explained, I'm compiling a martial arts manual. Martial tactics? Wei Chou was stunned. Yes. Lin Muyu raised her head and said, Wei Chou, Fengshi, General Sun, General Shui, have you heard of the art of taming beasts? No. Everyone shook their heads. Lin Muyu lightly waved her arm and activated her spiritual perception. Instantly, a spatial crack appeared in the corner of the tent. Then, the Acatosaurus's huge body rushed out with a dragon's roar. It came to its master's side while wagging its huge tail. It looked at everyone with an indomitable dragon's might. Its brown eyes were filled with ruthlessness, as if the generals in front of it were ants. Wei Chou and the others had seen the Acatosaurus before, so they were not surprised. Instead, Sidu Sen and Situ Shui were shocked. Sidu Sen had already pulled out his sword and said, What the hell is this? Sidu Shui's beautiful eyes were filled with shock and joy. Wow! This is the commander's pet? Lin Muyu did not deny it and said, In the past, taming pets was the exclusive right of the empire's nobles. They caught the cubs of spirit beasts and raised them from young. In fact, it was no different from raising a dog or a horse. They could not unleash the power of the spirit beasts to the peak. However, there was a book called The Art of Taming, which allowed the owner and the spirit beast to form a soul contract. Then, they could fuse, or even transform into armor, which greatly increased the coordination between the owner and the pet. When I was at Lingnan, it was all thanks to the Acatosaurus's fusion armor. Otherwise, I would not have been able to come back to see you. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the commander's story in shock. Lin Muyu sighed and said, It's a pity that the art of taming is too profound, and it is extremely difficult to get started. Only those who are extremely talented can understand a thing or two. However, I was fortunate enough to learn the long-lost soul pulse technique under Great Deacon Lei Hong's guidance, so I have a glimpse of the art of taming. It is also because of this that I have made up my mind to fuse the first volume of the soul pulse technique and the first 3 volumes of the art of taming to create a more simple and feasible beast taming technique. I will temporarily call it the art of beast taming. After I finish writing the martial arts manual and mental cultivation technique, I will pass it to all of you to read. After that, I plan to set up a beast taming department in the Holy Temple and create an army that can fuse all of their beasts into armor to increase the battle power of the Longdan army camp. Sidu Sen's eyes lit up. Commander, are you really going to pass the art of beast taming to us? What else? This is a priceless treasure. If I were the commander, I would definitely charge a fee. 1,000 Jinin coins per person as capital recovery. Damn, Sidu Shui giggled and said, Commander, hurry up and write it. I can't wait to learn it. Yes, I will. In the afternoon, Su Jiantao's drawing of the giant shield, spear, and armor was completed. He immediately sent a letter to Lanyan City to Jin Xiaoting. Lin Muyu had given her a target of 5,000 sets of armor as soon as possible. The ironware shop under the Xin Flower Chamber of Commerce must be very busy. Jin Xiaoting had worked hard during this period of time, but it could not be helped. 2 days later, the art of beast taming was completed. Wei Chou copied a few copies and passed them to the captaincy to study. Unfortunately, the spiritual beasts in the Endless Forest were not as abundant as in the Dragon-Seeking Forest, so they could not find spiritual beasts to experiment with. However, among the group of people, the siblings Situ Sen and Situ Shui were the most talented and comprehended the art the best. The afternoon spring breeze made people feel a little lazy. Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others rode on their warhorses and patrolled around the camp. In the distance, the sound of Prince Huangshi training the barbarian tribe's warriors with shield attacks and spear stabs could be heard. The barbarians were all loud, and their battle cries could be heard. Wei Chou frowned and said, Commander, when are we returning to the Empire? Are you also worried about the war between the Empire and the demon race? Lin Muyu asked. Yes, the opponent is the demon race. I can't help but worry. Let's wait a little longer. Lin Muyu looked at the barbarian tribe's camp in the distance with a worried expression and said, The barbarian tribe is not easy to deal with. That barbarian god of wilderness is even more arrogant and doesn't care about anyone. If we don't make proper arrangements for their camp and fields here, I'm afraid that once we leave, they will turn against us. At that time, the Guardian Army and the demon race will inevitably be very passive. Is this also the reason why Lord Commander has been insisting on not giving weapons to the barbarian tribe? Lin Muyu nodded. Unless they are barbarian warriors who have joined the Longdan army camp, we will absolutely not give them 1.5-star bronze, iron weapons, shields, etc. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the balance will change. I understand. Water the potato fields more. After the first batch of potatoes germinate, we will return to the Empire. After resupplying through Lanyan City, we will go straight to the demon race's battlefield. Yes. Lin Muyu turned to look at Tang Xiaoxi and said with a smile, Xiaoxi, will you also choose 50,000 elites from the demon race's army to go with me to Cangnan province? Tang Xiaoxi readily agreed. Even if you don't ask, I will still stay by your side. Don't worry. In Cangnan province, the morning fog was getting thicker and thicker. The sound of the rice river flowing in the fog was also becoming more intense. The demon race's river-filling tactic was changing the overall environment of this rice river tributary. The morning fog turned into dew and fell on his shoulders. Feng Jixing carried his wind cutter and led the imperial army to ride along the river. His face was full of anxiety as he said, check the catapults again. Is the black beech oil ready? It's ready, General Feng. Please rest assured. We must defend to the death and not let the demon race easily come ashore. Yes. The night and fog were the demon race's natural protective barriers. It was taking advantage of this environment that allowed them to carry out the river-filling tactic step by step. The Imperial Army couldn't do anything about it. Not far away, a messenger galloped over, cupped his hands and said, General Feng, there are signs of the demon race filling the river 7 miles away from here. They have already filled up the middle of the river. In addition, there are signs of the demon race filling the river in 4 places in the defensive area of Maple Ferry. Bastard! Feng Jixing turned around and pulled out his long saber. With a roar, the raging whirlwind Do Qi around his body danced as he slashed at the dense fog. Instantly, flames spun out and blew away the dense fog that was close to 100 meters away. However, he saw that the dam built by the demon race was already less than 40 meters away from the shore. If it was any closer, the armor demon could even spread its wings and fly over to attack. Oh my God! Zhang Wei was dumbfounded. It's already so close. Forget it. Feng Jixing gritted his teeth and said, throw the black beech oil, burn it for me. The catapults on the shore were equipped with oil barrels. Peng 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 sounds were heard as the oil barrels were thrown out one after another. Immediately, oil barrels floated on the surface of the river. Feng Jixing didn't say anything and rushed out with his sword. His battle boots stepped on the surface of the water and didn't sink. With a spin of his sword, the blade Qi smashed the oil barrels on the surface of the water. In the blink of an eye, the water was filled with black beech oil. He pulled back and raised his palm. The purple electric flame wolf roared unceasingly. With a light wave of his palm, the flames ignited and instantly spread out. The oil barrels on the surface of the water immediately exploded. In a moment, more than half of the dam was shrouded in flames. The miserable howls of the armor demons sounded especially pleasant. Zhang Wei couldn't help but laugh. Good burning. Good. Feng Jixing wasn't happy at all. He lightly said, Zhang Wei, after dusk, let all the soldiers on the shore return to the steel wall. Why? Did the commander give up the defense line? Yes. Feng Jixing let out a deep sigh. His eyes were filled with helplessness. What else can we do if we don't give up? Our black beech oil is extremely limited. There's no way we can continue to use it like this. The demon race's attack on the city is already inevitable. We can't let our brothers die in vain under the city wall. Relying on the steel wall, we can still be in an invincible position. Don't forget, our 500 million Jining coins can't be spent in vain. Zhang Wei grinned. Commander, old Zhang understands. I'll go and do as you say. Have you told His Highness about the matter of retreating to the steel wall? His Highness has the same idea. All right, I'll go and pass the order. Chapter 428. The next day. The morning mist covered the middle of the towering ancient trees like a skirt, reducing the visibility of the entire jungle and the rice river. When the rising sun pierced through the mist, all the soldiers on the city wall took a deep breath. To the east of the steel protective wall, there were swarms of armored demons. They had successfully crossed the river. Hua, hua, hua. The dark blue imperial war flag with the emblem of the purple flower was fluttering in the breeze. Qin Yin was wearing a neat female officer's military uniform and a delicate soft armor. She looked at the armor demon core under the parapet wall as she gently pressed her hand on the hilt of her purple sword, saying calmly, "Get ready for war." Feng Jixing raised his palm as the war drums thundered. On the city wall, numerous arrow boxes, ballistae and ballistae were aimed at the direction of the armor demons. As long as the armor demons were under the city wall, they would be within the shooting range of the arrow boxes. After all, the parapet wall was only 200 m away from the riverbank. Even the archers on the city wall could shoot them. In a split second, the thick steel arrows were shot out along with the sound of the spring of the arrow boxes and shot into the crowd of armor demons. However, the armor demons remained motionless. All the armor demons in the front row were holding huge steel shields. However, the steel shields were so poor and thin that they couldn't even resist the penetration of steel arrows. As a result, the armor demons were shot to death by the arrow boxes in groups. However, each time an armor demon was killed, the armor demons in the rear would immediately walk forward and pick up their shields to build a shield wall. This time, the armor demon corps seemed to have changed a lot. They had started to learn the phalanx tactic to minimize the loss. What are they waiting for? Zhang Wei asked with a frown. They're waiting for the things behind. Feng Jixing's voice was icy. As expected, many siege towers and scaling ladders had been transported from the rear of the phalanx. They were their trump cards. Lingdong Province and Heavenspan Province were short of resources and iron ores. Therefore, demon shields were very thin. However, as the two provinces were covered with jungles, they didn't lack wood. Therefore, demons could have as many wooden siege weapons as they wanted. Feng Jixing slowly pulled out his wind cutter and said, "Prepare to fight." The melee soldiers on the city wall pulled out their weapons one after another, each of them wearing a dignified expression. For many of them, this was the first time they had fought against the demon race, and they had never thought that there would be such a day. Creak. An unpleasant sound came from the siege tower's axle as it slowly rose up. Feng Jixing immediately turned to the soldiers who were using the ballistae and said, "Destroy it." The ballista took aim, and with a pring sound, a huge rock fell on the tower. Unfortunately, it only shook a little and couldn't be destroyed. Damn it! Feng Jixing raised his saber and rushed down. His whole body was covered with whirlwind fighting light. His martial spirit roared and fell into the group of armor demons. He suddenly waved his long saber and the hot sand scorching metal smashed the bodies of several armor demons. The windcutter saber was a sacred weapon that could destroy everything. In the blink of an eye, Feng Jixing arrived at the bottom of the tower like a bolt of lightning. He leaped up and struck out with the Devil Blade Devourer. Boom! In the strong light, the huge siege tower was turned into powder by the power of Feng Jixing's saber. However, this attack also consumed a lot of dou qi from Feng Jixing. His face was slightly pale as he continuously killed several armor demons with his saber. When he turned around, a heavy battle axe was slashed in front of him. It was the attack of an armor demon general. Clang! The windcutter saber blocked the attack. The huge force forced Feng Jixing to retreat quickly. After knocking over several armor demons, he came to the steel wall and jumped up to the top of the city. Zhang Wei threw down a rope and said, "Commander, come up quickly." Feng Jixing grabbed the rope. The sound of the weapons thrown by the armor demons hitting the wall came from all around him. His back became heavier, and he couldn't help but feel a sweetness in his throat. However, he held it back and didn't let the blood flow out from the corner of his mouth. His face was slightly pale. Qin Yin hurriedly came over and asked, General Feng, are you all right? I'm fine. Feng Jixing waved his hand and said with his head lowered, the battle strength of the armor demons is indeed very terrifying. Xiahou Sang raised his long saber and said, Commander, they are about to attack. I know. Feng Jixing raised his head and regained his confidence. He said, don't stop the arrow boxes and ballistae. I want to see how many armor demons there are for us to kill. Below the city, the corpses of the armor demons were piled up one after another. However, their siege towers and scaling ladders were still advancing. Finally, the iron hook of the first siege tower was hung on the battlement of the city wall. The iron plate suddenly fell down, and a dozen armor demons in the siege tower immediately rushed up to the city wall with their weapons in hand. The battle axe swept across, and the heads of 2 Empire soldiers immediately flew up. Get out of the way! Qin Yin's voice came from the chaotic crowd. With a flash of sword light, the head of the armor demon was cut off. Qin Yin was surrounded by true dragon god binding chains. Facing the siege of a dozen armor demons, she suddenly danced with her sword and flew in the air. The first style of the Dragon Slayer formula, reverse dragon spin. The sword light filled with the divine power of the god binding chains flew everywhere. A dozen armor demons were chopped into pieces. This lethality was really amazing. When Du Hai stepped into the Saint Realm, his attack was probably far inferior to that of the current Qin Yin, who was at the 3rd heaven of the Heaven Realm. Destroy it! Chu Chu's voice came from the sky. A flaming palm fell and directly turned the siege tower into powder. With the fire cauldron martial spirit around his body, Chu Chu looked coldly at the dense armor demon army below the city wall. He suddenly waved his palms, and fire palms full of raging flames fell on the ground. It was like a purge. Facing absolute power, the armor demons could only howl miserably in the sea of fire and wait for death. Spear throw! Qin Yan's voice came from the crowd. The reorganized imperial army also joined the battle. Hundreds of spears were thrown down together, piercing the armor demons that had lost their defensive ability and were riddled with holes. However, on the city wall not far away, there were armor demons climbing up the protective wall from the ladders and fighting with the human soldiers. The battle on and below the city wall had already turned into a mess. Feng Jixing carried his saber and rushed around, tearing apart the armor demons that rushed up the city wall one by one. Finally, the fighting energy in his body could no longer control this kind of intense attack. With a miserable groan, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Protect the commander! Zhang Wei waved his steel saber and cut off the head of an armor demon. However, he was immediately sent flying by the blunt saber of another armor demon. He fell on the battlement in a sorry state. Feeling a chill behind him, Feng Jixing hurriedly said, Lower your head. Zhang Wei subconsciously lowered his body, only to see a broadsword sweep across and cut off his helmet. Fortunately, he dodged in time, or else his head would have been separated from his body. A few imperial soldiers bravely stepped forward and pierced their swords into the body of the armor demon that had almost taken Zhang Wei's life, sending it down the metal protective wall. Keep shooting arrows. Quickly clean them up. Feng Jixing carried his wind cutter and continued to join the battle. In the distance, Qin Yin's shoulders were already stained with a lot of blood. Some belonged to the armor demons, and some belonged to the human soldiers. However, she didn't retreat. Her long sword was surrounded by the power of the golden god binding lock, and it sliced the bodies of the armor demons apart. Meanwhile, Chu Chu was protecting the Empress by her side, constantly eliminating threats for her. The fierce battle continued until dusk. The entire metal protective wall seemed to be stained red with blood. Finally, the demon race stopped attacking the city. It seemed that their military strength was insufficient. A group of demon race only raised their shields 200 meters away from the east of the metal protective wall, blocking the arrows and crossbows. There were corpses everywhere on the city wall, and the ground looked as if it had been washed with blood. Feng Jixing carefully stepped on the blood-covered bricks and said, Order the arrow boxes and crossbows to stop shooting. Save one arrow. Zhang Wei immediately went to pass the order. Feng Jixing continued to ask, "How many arrows did we use today?" Luo Yu, the deputy commander, said, "Sir, the arrow boxes were specially made to use up a lot of energy. Just today, we used up nearly 20% of the arrows. Furthermore, the demon race is guarding outside the city, so we have no chance to retrieve the arrows." Got it? Feng Jixing's gaze was heavy. Move the corpses of the dead soldiers to the west of the city and bury them at night. Feng Jixing walked down the walkway in disappointment. Inside the fortress, Qin Yin was washing her hands. Her hands were already stained with blood. It seemed that all the generals on the city wall today were the same. As long as they were strong enough, they were fighting. "General Feng, how is it?" Qin Yin turned around and sat on the Empress's seat. "The losses are great." Feng Jixing frowned. "The specific numbers are not out yet, but at least tens of thousands of people have died in battle." Got it? After nightfall, the demon race won't attack again, right? No, if they attack, we can only use fire to defend. Outside, Jianghu walked in with a group of Qihai city generals covered in blood and said, "The main force of the Qianfeng Corps is at the ferry at Shanlin town, and the other crossings are just a nuisance." It seems that General Feng didn't guess wrong. Qianfeng wants to attack the fortress at Shanlin town's ferry. "Marquis Pingnan has worked hard," Qin Yin said. Jianghu hurriedly cupped his hands and said respectfully, "This subordinate is working hard for the nation. It's worth it." That night, the demon race didn't make any big movements. The next day, it was foggy again. Feng Jixing stood on the city wall, and his face was full of anxiety. Even the heavens were helping the demon race. It was very strange that there would actually be a foggy day in spring, and it lasted for nearly a month. In the distance, he could faintly hear the sounds of digging soil and building a city, but he didn't know what the demon race was doing. Until noon, when the sun had dispersed the fog, he could see that the demon race had already built a 3-meter-high wall along the Daojiang River. It looked like it was a series of walls that stretched for nearly 5 kilometers. "What are they trying to do?" Zhang Wei grinned and said, "The demon race is ridiculous. Do they think that a mud wall can compete with a steel wall? This group of idiots." Feng Jixing muttered to himself. He didn't dare to laugh at the demon race's idiots. The commander of this demon army was the brave and intelligent Qianfeng. Those who dared to look down on Qianfeng would definitely be annihilated. Chapter 429. On the 4th day of the 4th month, year 7735, Lin Muyu led the Longdan army camp and 5,000 barbarian warriors out of the endless forest and returned to Lanyan city. The entire army set up camp at the Longdan army camp outside the city and rested for the night. Starlight shrouded Lanyan city. Lin Muyu looked at the majestic Lanyan city from afar, but she also knew that Qin Yin and Chu Yao were not in the city. The demon clan had invaded, and Qin Yin had personally led the troops. As the chief deacon of the spiritual medicine department, Chu Yao had personally gone to take care of the logistics of transporting medicine and other miscellaneous matters. Rows of carriages sped over under the starlight, escorted by the staff of the temple. In the distance, Jin Shaoing had already jumped down from her horse and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, all the tasks have been completed. These are 5,000 giant armors, 5,000 spears, and conical steel shields. We used more than 40 ironware workshops in Lanyan City to complete them." "Really?" Lin Muyu was extremely excited. She walked forward and lifted the black cloth on one of the carriages. Sure enough, the spears and shields were suffused with a moving luster under the moonlight. "Xiaodang, you've been a great help," Lin Muyu said sincerely. Jin Xiaodang pouted and said, "I've already stopped the business of the merchant guild. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to supply these weapons, provisions, and so on. Brother Yu, you can't squeeze me anymore in the next few months. I want to properly manage the business of the Purple Flower Merchant Guild and make it prosper day by day." "All right." Lin Muyu nodded readily and ordered, "Prince Huang Shi, have the barbarian warriors carry the weapons and shields." Huang Shi's face was filled with excitement. Although the warriors of the Great Wildlands tribe were extremely strong, all of them used stone weapons. Their lethality was extremely limited, not to mention that their bodies were covered in armor. The carts of spears, shields, and armor were simply priceless treasures to the Wildlands tribe. They were more precious than anything else. Lin Muyu picked up a long spear and touched the edge of the spear. She remained silent. Jin Xiaotang smiled and said, "The edge of the spear was tempered and polished, so it's a bit sharper than the weapons of the average imperial soldier. I think." She looked at those tall and sturdy barbarian warriors and said, "I think with the physique and strength of these giant warriors, the sharpness of these spears is enough to penetrate the shell of an armor demon." "Well, that's good. Thank you, Xiaotang. Stay and have supper with me tonight. Tomorrow, the Longdan army camp will be moved to the steel fence. I wonder how the situation there is." Jin Xiaotang's brows slightly knit as she said, "It is not optimistic." 2 days ago Yu's letter was sent back and the news was that the demon race had crossed the Rice River and directly attacked the steel protective wall. The Empire's army suffered heavy casualties and those demon race seemed to have gone crazy. Once the steel protective wall is unable to hold, one fear that Songnan province would vanish in a moment. "Yeah." Lin Muyu muttered to herself for a moment, then said, let's go eat supper." Okay. After entering the camp, Jin Xiaotang's eyes widened as she looked at everything in the Longdan army camp. The life in the army camp was very novel to her. Far away, beside a bonfire, a beautiful young lady was roasting a deer leg. She was wearing a luxurious cloak and with one look, one would know who she was. Jin Xiaotang immediately bowed respectfully and said with a smile, "This commoner girl Jin Xiaotang greets Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi turned around and smiled. "Xiaotang? No need to stand on ceremony. Come. Let's eat together." Thank you Princess Shi." At this time, Wei Chou, Sidu Sen, Sidu Shui and the other captaincy-level generals also came over and sat in a circle around the bonfire. Wei Chou frowned and said, "Commander, the steel protective wall is in a state of emergency. How about we march through the night?" Lin Muyu shook her head lightly. "We rushed all the way from the Forest of Infinity to Lanyan City. Everyone is exhausted and the war horses need rest. We must have a good sleep tonight. Otherwise, even if the Longdan army camp reaches the steel protective wall, they won't have much combat power. I can't let everyone die for nothing. Eat quickly and sleep after eating." "Yes, Commander." At night, the camp was bustling with people shouting and horses neighing. This time, Lin Muyu brought a total of nearly 110,000 soldiers, including 5,000 barbarian tribe soldiers, 50,000 demon tribe soldiers, and 50,000 Longdan army camp soldiers. In terms of combat power, they could be considered the best among the few large armies in the Empire. Lin Muyu also hoped that this army could bring a bright future to the Empire. After eating and sending off Jin Xiaotang, Lin Muyu stood outside the commander's tent and breathed in and out, refining the power of stars. The starlight in the entire empire seemed to have dimmed a lot. She closed her eyes and let the starlight fall on her body and slowly seep into her flesh. Thoughts flew in Lin Muyu's mind. Ever since she came to this continent, she was first chased by mercenaries in Silver Fir City, then by Jin Yifun's men in Lanyan City, then by Divine Lord Luo Lan when the Iha Kingdom rebelled. After that, she was resurrected with the help of the Demon Emperor and suffered a crushing defeat in Winter Frost City. She could be said to be the most miserable transmigrator in thousands of years, right? If one's fist wasn't strong enough, all the lofty words and ambitions were fake. But now, she had already stepped into the Saint Realm, and she had the 110,000 heroes behind her. It was time to show her ambition. Sensing the vigorous power of stars in her body, Lin Muyu felt that the fighting aura in her dantian was overflowing, and the two martial souls in her will see, the 7 luminaries holy gourd and the god-binding chains, were shrouded in a pale blue light, suffused with faint starlight. It was the nebula fighting aura. I've already stepped into the middle stage of the first heaven of the Saint Realm. The next step is to continue raising my cultivation and cultivate the nebula fighting aura into the radiant sun fighting aura, which all Saint Realm experts are most proud of. At that time, I'll be close to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, and breaking through to the second layer of the Saint Realm is just a matter of time. With a satisfied smile on his face, he couldn't help but smile. He turned around and lifted the curtain to enter the commander's tent, only to see that on the other bed in the tent, Tang Xiaoxi was already sleeping peacefully. Her sleeping face was very beautiful, and her breathing was even. Her body was covered by a princess's cloak, and a wisp of starlight fell on her face, making her look indescribably beautiful. Lin Muyu gently pulled the cloak, covering Tang Xiaoxi's exposed snow-white arm, then turned around and went to her own bed, leisurely falling asleep. The high-ranking generals in the Longdan army camp all knew how close Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu were, and there was actually nothing wrong with the two of them sleeping in the same tent. After all, the empire was in chaos and powerful enemies were everywhere. Whether it was the Iha country or the demon race, they all wished for Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi to die. It was also expected that they would send people to assassinate them. Therefore, it was also good for the two of them to stay together and take care of each other. After a night of deep sleep, dreams were endless. The dreams were red and green, and countless past events flew past one by one. When Lin Muyu woke up, drops of dew were dripping from the tent, landing on her cheeks. Tang Xiaoxi also slowly woke up. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Lin Muyu, then looked at her own hair, stuck out her tongue, and said with a smile, "I want to comb my hair first. Can Mu help me?" Lin Muyu also helped Qin Yin comb her hair, and this feeling was still vivid in her mind. Tang Xiaoxi's hair was soft, and strands of black hair slid in the palm, making people feel intoxicated. Not long after, the war drums rumbled outside, and the three armies set off. In the Zhangnan province, the war was still in full swing, and the sound of war drums was endless. This was already the 7th day since the demon race attacked the steel protective wall. The Empire army relied on the steel protective wall to resist the demon race for 7 days and 7 nights, and they were not defeated. The city wall was full of crisscross traces of sabers and axes. Although the demon race's catapults were clumsy, the huge rocks smashing on the city wall were still chilling. Feng Jixing, carrying the bloody wind cutter, walked step by step through the pile of corpses, frowned, and said, "Treat the wounded as soon as possible." Zhang Wei's voice choked for a moment and said, "Commander, our imperial army has lost nearly 10,000 brothers. Moreover, Great Deacon Chu Yao's side has also run out of medicine. Last night, dozens of brothers died of pain." Feng Jixing's face was full of fatigue, and the smoke of war had blackened his originally handsome face. The white imperial forest cloak draped behind him was also covered with gun holes and sword marks. He murmured, "In short, do your best to fight. The steel protective wall cannot be lost, otherwise, Zhangnan province will be finished. How many arrows do we still have?" Luo Yu cupped her fists and said, "Enough for a day. The demon race has picked up all the arrows under the city wall, these despicable things." Feng Jixing supported Ji Qi, looking at the demon race's earth wall that was continuously rising in height in the distance, and said, "What is Qianfeng thinking? What is their intention in building this wall? I still can't understand." Zhang Wei said, "If you can't understand, then don't think about it." At this time, Xiahou Sang cupped his fists and said, "Commander, this subordinate has just received intelligence from the scouts. Qianfeng's army has a total of 170,000, and in 7 days and 7 nights, they have lost nearly 40,000 armor demons, and nearly 90,000 armor demons, as well as 40,000 winged people, high-level demons, and other miscellaneous troops. In addition, Qianfeng is personally leading the battle, and the demon race's central camp is located near Lake Lu. It is said, there are many enslaved humans there, and some high-level demons, all of them female." "Female demons?" Feng Jixing was taken aback. "What's their background?" "It's the demon royal family. Our scouts have captured several human slaves, and from them, we learned that a group of high-level demons has also come to the battlefield, as if they want to see the spectacular scene of the demon race attacking the city." "Damn it!" Feng Jixing's face was ashen, his clear eyes looking at the generals beside him, suddenly clenching his fists. "It seems we have to take a risk this time. Commander, please give the order." The generals cupped their fists together. Feng Jixing looked at the crowd, saying, Luo Yu, you are the calmest and smartest among the Imperial Army's captaincy-level generals. I order you to lead 3,000 Imperial Army elite cavalry to our naval port at night, and transfer 20 warships into the main Rice River basin. Remember, you can only move in the morning fog at night, and travel along the west bank of Rice River. Once you reach Lake Lu, immediately go ashore and launch a surprise attack on the demon race's grain camp, only burn it without fighting, and disrupt the demon race's supply line. If possible, capture a few demon royal family members and bring them back to the imperial capital. Yes, Commander. Luo Yu's face was covered in blood, raising his head to look at Feng Jixing, his eyes filled with determination. Even if I die in battle, I will not disappoint Commander's expectations. Feng Jixing placed his hand on his shoulder, saying, I have given you all the Imperial Army cavalry, and I want you to bring everyone back alive. You must do this, and don't talk to me about failure. This battle, you can only win, not lose. Chapter 430. A light drizzle began to fall. The rain in spring was always unending. The raindrops slowly flowed down along Qin Yin's delicate facial features. She blinked her eyes and lowered her head to wipe the rainwater off her face. She continued to look at the rising demon wall in the distance. On the side, Chu Chu, Feng Jixing, Xiangyu, Su Yu, and the others stood guard. Your Highness. Su Er cupped her fists and said, Qianfeng's main force is in front of us. It seems like Qianfeng wants to defeat us at our strongest defense. This arrogant demon marshal? Xiangyu gritted his teeth and said. Qin Yin squinted her beautiful eyes and said, Our top priority is to know Qianfeng's thoughts. Why did he build such a high wall? Duke Lan, grandfather, can you guess it? Tang Lan held onto the battlement as rainwater slowly flowed down her aged palm. Her pair of turbid eyes looked into the distance and said, The demon's siege weapons are not excellent. This is also the reason why their siege ladders and siege towers have not been able to break through the steel protective wall. If they had cast a layer of steel armor on the siege towers, I believe that the steel protective wall would have been broken long ago. In this old man's opinion, Qianfeng's purpose of building such a high wall is to stand up to us and increase the range of the catapults so that they can throw stones at the wall. Qin Yin's fragrant shoulders trembled slightly and said, If that's the case, then it's not that simple. At this moment, Su Muyun suddenly staggered and his expression changed drastically. What's wrong, grandfather? Qin Yin hurriedly asked. Su Yu also supported her father and asked, Father, what's wrong? Su Muyun's hand trembled slightly as he pointed at the demon wall in the distance and said, You guys. Can you guys imagine what would happen if the demon's catapults were to throw a lot of huge stones? If it's not huge stones, then what are they? Feng Jixing was startled. Qin Yin was exceptionally intelligent and had already thought of it. She was startled and said, They will throw living things over a living creature? Xiangyu was stunned. Su Muyu nodded. If they throw living armor demons, how are we going to block them when tens of thousands of armor demons fall from the sky and land on the inside of the steel wall? Heavens! Feng Jixing suddenly gripped the hilt of his saber and said, Qianfeng couldn't have really thought of this, could he? It must be. Tang Lan's face was pale. She looked at the earth wall that was continuously being built in the distance and said, Their wall is already close to 20 meters high. The steel wall is 45 meters high. In addition to the projectile ability of their catapults. It should be time. We need to make a decision as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid we'll be caught off guard. Got it. Qin Yin's eyes dimmed as she said, The steel wall is no longer safe. Grandfather, Elder Lan, I will send someone to escort you out of the steel wall. You should return to the imperial capital first. Su Muyun was aghast. Xiaoyin, grandfather, you're already so old. You should have a good death instead of dying on the battlefield. Qin Yin's eyes were red as she looked at Su Muyun and said, Grandfather, Xiaoyin has no relatives left. I can't just watch you die. Su Muyun's body trembled and tears streamed down his face. He said in a low voice, Su Yu, all the troops in Muyu City are now under your command. You must protect Shaoyin and guard the steel wall. Yes, father. Soon after, Su Muyun and Tang Lan left the steel protective wall under the escort of the guards and disappeared into the curtain of rain. Your Highness, why didn't you leave? Feng Jixing frowned and said, It's the fate of us soldiers to die on the battlefield. You're the Empress. You really shouldn't stay here. No, if I leave, the morale of the army will be in chaos. If I don't leave, Chu will be here to protect me. All right then. When Feng Jixing raised his head again, he saw creaking sounds coming from the distant earth wall of the demon race. As expected, a huge catapult had been pushed onto the earth wall, followed by the second, the third, and more, densely packed together. Xiangyu was slightly stunned. What do we do now? Do we just sit here and wait for death? Qin Yin said faintly, all the military power of the empire will be under Feng Jixing's command. Now, General Feng, you're the supreme commander at the front line. You will be in charge of this war. Feng Jixing couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Your Highness, you're really making things difficult for me, Feng Jixing. To be given such a command in the face of danger. This crisis is too great. With that, Feng Jixing turned to the group of generals and said, Order all the soldiers to change into shields and raise them high above their heads to form a giant shield. When the demons fall, use the shields to throw them back down the steel wall. If the shields aren't enough, use a spear to press against the ground and aim in the direction of the demons. If they dare to fall, turn them into barbecued skewers. Yes, Commander. Everyone nodded. Feng Jixing looked behind him and asked, Zhang Wei, how much black beech oil do we have left? About 10,000 barrels. Commander, what's wrong? Pour the black beech oil into the ditches in the city and send people to dig more ditches. Make sure that there is a ditch every 3 meters. Also, we have already poured the black beech oil. Search the steel walls for all the materials that can ignite the fire. Once the rain stops, spread them all out. Zhang Wei's face was pale as he said, Commander, what are you doing? Feng Jixing clenched his fists and said indifferently, the steel wall cost the empire 500 million Jingren coins. Even if it's destroyed, it must be worth it. Go and do it immediately. In addition, remove all the arrow boxes and ballistae from the city and place them in the unicorn forest outside the steel wall. Prepare to fight the demons to the death. Yes. Ping. A catapult suddenly made a loud noise. What it threw wasn't a huge rock but a pitch-black object. It was an armor demon with a hunched body. It curled up like a beetle and relied on the hard armor on its back to protect its weak parts. It landed on the steel wall in a very strange curve. Clang. Feng Jixing unsheathed his long saber and waved it in the air. Immediately, the armor demon that was thrown over was dismembered in the air. Everyone laughed and cheered. However, the sound of catapults kept ringing. More and more armor demons were thrown from the sky. Soon, the guards on the city were tired of dealing with them. On the ground, the siege towers came again. It was like adding snow to snow. Block them, you must block them for me. Feng Jixing's face was cold. He kept charging into the crowd with his wind cutter, chopping the armor demons into pieces one after another. Meanwhile, Xiangyu gathered his chaotic force and used his bloodthirsty spear to launch a series of penetrating sanctuary attacks, piercing through the armor demons that had fallen on the city. Countless armor demons fell from the sky and smashed onto the shields of the soldiers on the city, or collided with the protruding spears. Under the huge impact, they were pierced into a bunch, but most of them rolled on the city or inside the city, and started killing wantonly. Ha! A familiar laughter came from below the city wall. Nobody knew when a demon in golden armor appeared. It was Qianfeng. With a roar, the Grandmaster-level demon power on the blade surged out and bombarded the iron gate of the steel wall. Bang! The city wall was shaking crazily. The iron gate couldn't withstand Qianfeng's attack and was directly pierced through. Qianfeng jumped up and appeared on the ladder with a group of advanced demon warriors. He smiled at Qin Yin on the city wall and said, Your Highness Qin Yin, we meet again. A 4-star demon warrior rushed over with a battle axe. With a roar, he swung the axe at Qin Yin's shoulder. Bang! The battle axe was suddenly deflected, and a dragon-shaped energy crystal shield appeared beside Qin Yin. It was the third form of the Dragon Slayer incantation, the Sacred Dragon Shield. Qin Yin's purple ink sword struck out at lightning speed, and with the power of the true dragon god binding chains, it pierced through the demon sex expert's shoulder. With a pft sound, blood splattered everywhere. However, the protective aura around his body was also very strong, or else the purple ink sword would have pierced through him. He didn't expect this delicate and beautiful empress to have such a cultivation. The demon warrior took a few steps back and stopped in midair on a cyclone. Qianfeng's roar came from behind him. Idiot, do you think Qin Yin is so easy to kill? Get back here. The demon warrior quickly retreated, but Qin Yin suddenly rose up, and her sword fell from the sky like a meteor shower. You want to kill me? Come on. He instantly revealed his arrogance, and cyclones formed by the demonic aura wrapped around his body. The cyclones wrapped around the Ziying sword and dragged Qin Yin down the city wall. But Qin Yin wasn't that easy to deal with. She shook her hand lightly, and her beautiful face was filled with killing intent. A god-binding chains appeared in the air and pierced through the demon warrior's thigh. Your Highness, danger. Chu Chu descended from the sky with the power of the Holy Sky Realm. He grabbed Qin Yin's shoulder and threw her onto the city wall. He then chased after her and opened his palm, shouting, Die! Buzz. The fire cauldron opened, and the light from the martial soul shot out in all directions. The raging flames instantly blew the demon warrior into pieces. Bastard! Qianfeng was infuriated, and his arms were filled with demonic aura. His blood-red eyes were filled with anger, and his sword carried boundless demonic aura as it slashed towards Chu Chu's back. With Chu Chu's cultivation, he suddenly jumped up in the air and stopped his body. The fire cauldron covered his body, and he pushed out with both palms. Raging flames rose into the sky and collided with Qianfeng's attack. Bang! The energy storm suddenly exploded, and the bricks behind him were all turned into dust. The center of the steel wall was destroyed, and the wall was definitely going to fall. Qianfeng spun around and retreated. The demonic aura in his body surged, and his blood and qi surged. He said with a stern gaze, Fire Cauldron Chu Chu, you really live up to your name. Chu Chu stood proudly in the wind, and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. He said indifferently, the demon race's monster is only SOSO. Qianfeng slowly retreated and pointed his sword at the steel wall and said, Today, we must break through this city and capture Qin Yin alive. Chapter 431. The fierce battle lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. When the spring rain stopped, the fortress that was protected by the steel walls was already filled with armor demons. The entire city was filled with the figures of the Empire's soldiers and armor demons. The sounds of fighting and screams were continuous. Arrows were constantly falling from the sky. That was the attack launched by the winged demon army from the sky. Bang! A section of the city wall collapsed. This steel wall that cost 500 million Jianghu coins was ultimately unable to stop the invasion of the demon race. Among the broken bricks of the city wall, countless soldiers and armor demons were still fighting, as if they would never stop. On the main road of the fortress, a group of Imperial Guards surrounded the Empress and retreated. The commander of the Imperial Guards, Qin Yin, carried a long spear and was surrounded by the radiance of the dragon scale armor. He said in a low voice, Your Highness, quickly leave the city. I will hold them off for a while. You have to be careful. Quickly follow me. Qin Yin said. Got it. Qin Yin urged his horse to turn around and rushed over with his long spear. The radiance of the dragon scale armor expanded greatly, protecting Qin Yin and his horse. The long spear was thrust out 3 times in a row, piercing through the throats of a few armor demons. At the same time, the dragon scale armor was continuously shaken, and golden radiance continuously burst forth. This also caused the youngest commander of the Empire to frown, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, a large group of soldiers and horses charged over from the back. It was the group led by Feng Jixing. Blow the conch horn. Retreat! Feng Jixing ordered loudly. Very quickly, the unique conch horn of the empire sounded in the city. This was the signal for a general retreat. A group of imperial guards carrying shields took on the task of bringing up the rear. They retreated step by step from this city that had already been occupied by the demon race. Behind them, the black mass of armor demons attacked wildly. There were at least 10,000 armor demons in the fortress. In addition, there were about 1,000 soldiers of the empire. All of you, get out of the city. Feng Jixing ordered loudly. Qin Yan had no choice but to lead the soldiers out of the city. Feng Jixing, on the other hand, dashed to the top of the inner city gate in 2 or 3 steps. With a quick spin of his wind cutter, he chopped off the noose on the iron gate with a dang sound. The iron gate fell down with a loud bang. When he looked into the city again, he saw hundreds of Imperial Army soldiers being surrounded by the armor demons, constantly being besieged and killed. Commander! Achillearch's face was covered in blood, but he still waved his saber and shouted, "Hurry up and leave. If we die, then we die. Commander, you're so precious, you can't die here." Feng Jixing gritted his teeth and rushed up the walls of the inner city step by step. He looked back at the Imperial army that was being massacred in the inner city. Tears swirled in his eyes as he muttered, "Brothers, your sacrifice will be worth it." Shwa shwa. A wisp of flame appeared on the edge of the saber. Feng Jixing launched a fierce strike at a group of armor demons who rushed forward to take down him, a commander-level battle general. Boom! The saber light cut open the bodies of a group of armor demons, and the flames fell on the ground. Immediately, the black beach oil in the city's ditches quickly ignited and spread everywhere. In an instant, the entire mountain forest stronghold with steel walls became a sea of fire. It was unknown how many Imperial soldiers were still trapped inside, but it was certain that more armor demons would die in this sea of fire. Feng Jixing carried his saber and jumped down from the city wall with bloodshot eyes. He took the warhorse from his subordinate and mounted it, saying, "Retreat, wait for the demons in the Unicorn Forest. Everyone left one after another. In the distance, there was only the rising smoke from the fortress and the remnants of the battle that was still going on in the fortress. Feng Jixing's face was livid. He didn't know how many soldiers of the Empire had been burned to death by this fire, but he knew that if this fire didn't start, the devil race would definitely charge straight in. By then, even Qin Yin wouldn't be able to escape. When night fell, the sparks in the Unicorn Forest lit up. The temporary Central Army tent was extremely simple and crude, and the neighing of warhorses could be heard in the surroundings. Qin Yin sat quietly in the commander's seat, looking calm. Beside her, Chu Chu, Feng Jixing, Xiang Yu, Su Yu, and the others were also silent. In the end, Zhang Wei could not bear it any longer and said, "The steel protective wall has already been broken. The intelligence from the front is that there are at least 100,000 demon soldiers quickly gathering. Before long, this 100,000 army will appear in the Unicorn Forest. How should we stop them?" Xiang Yu said, "Your Highness, I suggest that we withdraw and defend Wugu City. Wugu City has been operating for many years. The city is strong and has abundant food reserves. It can be used as a strong city to defend." A trace of displeasure flashed in Su Yu's eyes. "There are still 4 or 5 days to travel from here to Wugu City. The cavalry can quickly reach Wugu City, but the infantry is destined to be hunted down and killed by the demons. We still have nearly 300,000 troops in our hands, and almost 80% of them are infantry. Do we want to bury these imperial main forces?" Zhang Wei said, "Moreover, there is no continuous city pass around Wugu City to block the demons. Qian Feng is so cunning. He can command the demon army to bypass Wugu City and directly attack the imperial capital." Xiang Yu's face was ashen. Apart from this method, there is only a decisive battle. Qin Yin slightly frowned and asked, "General Feng, what do you think?" Feng Jixing clenched the hilt of his sword and said indifferently, It's time for the decisive battle. This subordinate has already mobilized people to dig and arrange traps in this area as early as half a month ago. Moreover, we have 800 arrow boxes and more than 300 ballistae. All of them have been arranged in the unicorn forest area. On flat ground, the arrow box's penetrating power can be maximized. As long as the demons dare to attack, we will send all the cavalry in our hands to deal with them. We will use arrow boxes, ballistae, traps, and so on to continuously consume the demons and kill all their armor demons. Let's see what else Qian Feng can use to fight us. Do we really have to fight the demons? Tang Lu looked aghast and said, General Feng, you have also seen the fighting strength of the demon army. Do you really think our cavalry can compete with the armor demons? Otherwise? Feng Jixing's eyes were ice cold. He raised his hand and pointed to the west and said, Five Valley City, Lanyan City, Qihai City, Mu City, and hundreds of cities and thousands of counties of the empire are there. If we don't fight to the death with the demons here today, are we going to watch helplessly as the empire's territory is trampled by the demons and our people are slaughtered by the demons? Lord Tang Lu, don't forget that we are wearing the empire's military uniform and should do what we should do. On the side, Imperial Guard Deputy Commander Xiahou Sang cupped his fists and said, Reporting to Your Highness and Lord Commander, we have just received a letter saying that Commander Lin Muyu of the Longdan Army Camp is rushing over from Lanyan City with 110,000 elite troops. They will arrive at Five Valley City in about 5 days to reinforce us. Great. Feng Jixing's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, As long as we resist the Qianfeng Corps here for 5 days, when Yu's 110,000 troops arrive, we will definitely be able to turn defeat into victory. A smile finally appeared on Qin Yin's beautiful face and she said, Everything will be according to General Feng's arrangements. Yes, this general will not disappoint the Lord. Early in the morning, the faint cries of strange beasts came from the unicorn forest, but no one paid attention to the wild beasts and the beautiful flowers and trees in the surroundings. A thin mist shrouded the middle of the forest, turning into a trace of rain that fell on the armor and battle robes. The densely packed Imperial heavy cavalry all stood beside the warhorses, holding weapons in their hands, their faces full of solemnity. A little further away, there were 12 square formations of heavy shield and spear battalions, all equipped with heavy shields and spears. Every 5,000 people formed a circle, forming a heavy armor battle formation in the forest. In the mist, Qin Yin, Su Yu, Tang Lu, Tang Tian, and the others were all standing on the viewing platform that couldn't be considered too high. The corners of Xiang Yu's mouth curled up and he said with a smile, Is this the Qiankuan battle formation passed down by ancestors Xiang Wenian? That's right. Feng Jixing nodded and said, The Qiankuan battle formation grows and grows endlessly, and it is very difficult for the demons to break through our dense battle formation in this forest terrain. The mist is very thick, and the demons can't see clearly, neither can we. But to use the drum to direct the changes in the battle formation, we should already have the advantage of the right time and the right place. Xiang Yu couldn't help but sneer, I didn't expect General Feng to have studied the ancestors' battle formation so thoroughly. Feng Jixing frowned and didn't say anything. At the side, Qin Yin said, General Feng, what are our chances of victory? About 30%. Feng Jixing's expression was solemn as he said, The Armor Demon Legion has a large number of people, and they also have the cooperation of the Winged Person Legion and the high-level demons. Even if we use the Qiankuan battle formation, I'm afraid we won't have more than 50% chance of victory. Su Er was startled. Then what's the meaning of us fighting the demons in the unicorn forest? Consumption. Feng Jixing's handsome face instantly surged with hatred, and he said, The demons have trampled on our empire's mountains and rivers. We will fight the demons sooner or later. The meaning of this battle is to kill 40 to 50,000 armor demons even if we lose 100,000 soldiers and horses of the empire. Only in this way can we create the only chance of victory for Yu's Longdan army camp. Su Yu was startled and didn't say anything. Xiang Yu, however, sneered and said, I didn't expect General Feng to be so selfless. Is it to create an opportunity for Commander Yu to make a great contribution by fighting the demons to the death here? The Brotherhood of General Feng has really reached the extreme. Feng Jixing couldn't help laughing and said, "Why, Marquis Pingnan is not convinced? If your people have the ability to deal with and win against the same number of armor demons, I, Feng Jixing, will give up the military power. Do you have that ability?" Xiang Yu gnashed his teeth and remained silent. Indeed, although he was conceited, he also knew the power of the armor demons. Moreover, there was the existence of an invincible commander like Chen Feng. In addition, the Seven Seas City Army was indeed far less elite than Lin Muyu's Longdan Army camp. If they fought against the same number of armor demons, they would definitely lose. However, Lin Muyu had some chance of winning. Dong, dong, dong. In the distance, the deafening sound of the war drums of the demon race came. The war drums of the Empire were all made of cowhide, which was dull and penetrating. However, the war drums of the demon race were all made of a strange animal skin. When they were beaten, it was like thunder, making people unable to bear the earth-shattering sound. Chapter 432. It's here. A faint pulsating sound came from the ground. Feng Jixing suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the impenetrable fog in the distance. He said, "War drums, enter the formation." Dong dong dong. The Empire's cowhide war drums began to reverberate rapidly. Meanwhile, the 60,000 Imperial infantrymen of the 12 Cosmos battle formations rapidly changed their formation in the vast forest. They pointed their spears at the perimeter, raised their shields, and narrowed their eyes. Their faces were full of fighting spirit. Qin Yin's hand unconsciously grasped the hilt of her sword. Her starry eyes looked into the distance. Her spirit sense transmitted a trace of pulsation. The true dragon god binding chains hovered around her arm. She seemed to be able to sense the movement and arrival of the armor demons better. Chu Chu pondered and said, "The battle has begun." In the distance, dense roars drifted from the dense mist as armored demons rushed out of the mist one after another with battle axes, spears, and huge sabers. They roared and rushed towards the crowd. However, the enemies in front of them were as hard as a tortoise shell. When the armored demons roared and rushed forward, they could only crash onto the shields. Closely after that, they were pushed away by the shields and spears of 10 to 20 people. Bang bang bang, the sound did not stop. The armor demons kept attacking the Qian-Kun formation like a tide. Feng Jixing squinted his eyes and said, "Beat the drums, rotating formation." Dong dong, dong dong, dong dong. The war drums began to beat rhythmically. Immediately, the 12 formations in the distance began to rotate. The soldiers took turns to bear the impact of the armor demons. This allowed the formation to stay in the same place. The spears pierced through the armor demons one by one. In the blink of an eye, countless armor demons had been lost. However, the war drums of the demons in the distance became more and more intense. It turned out that more and more armor demons rushed into the formation. They began to flap their wings and fly into the formation. In an instant, the 12 Qian-Kun formation produced some small ripples and waves. Feng Jixing saw it clearly. He pressed his hand on the hilt of the saber and continued to order, "Beat the drums, attacking form." The beating of the war drums became extremely intense. The battle generals in the 12 battle formations in the distance heard it very clearly and immediately gave the order. Immediately, the Qian-Kun battle formations stopped rotating and moved in a certain direction in a regular pattern. The latter used their shields to push against the back of the former. In this way, they surrounded and protected each other, forming the superposition of 10, 100, and 1,000 people, pushing the group of armor demons back again and again. Boom boom boom. The ground covered with green leaves suddenly split open. It was a trap. One after another, the armored demons fell into the deep pit. Someone threw out a torch from the battle formation. Instantly, the black beech oil in the deep pit was ignited. Closely after that, those armored demons were pushed into the flaming deep pit one after another by the Qian-Kun battle formation. Miserable screams rose and fell. There were actually deep pits and traps in between the heaven and earth battle formation. This was something Qianfeng would never have thought of. Flames rose into the sky from over 30 deep pits, illuminating the shields held by the soldiers in the battle formation. The miserable shrieks of the armored demons seemed to be echoing their slaughters. At this moment, a group of armored demons suddenly rushed out from the center of the battle formation with unstoppable momentum. They broke into the central palace. Zhang Wei gritted his teeth. "It doesn't matter." Feng Jixing raised his sword-like eyebrows and said, "Once they enter the shooting range, the arrow box battalion will start attacking." "Yes, Commander." As expected, when the armored demons rushed into the central army about 200 meters away, the arrow boxes were launched at the same time. Countless arrows flew out densely like rain. 800 arrow boxes were launched at the same time, spraying tens of thousands of arrows in an instant. This kind of power was so terrifying that in just one round of shooting, nearly 1,000 armored demons were all turned into hedgehogs lying in front of the viewing platform of the central army of the Empire. In the distance, the flames were still burning fiercely. The Qinkuan battle formation kept flying, resisting the attacks of the armored demons. This shocking battle made everyone dumbfounded. Tang Tian was frightened and couldn't help but murmur, "Feng Jixing really is a brave general of the Empire." Qin Yin was also very gratified and said, "Since the appearance of the demon race from the Tongtian Gorge, they have always been invincible in field battles. Today, General Feng will probably break this rule. It is a blessing to have General Feng in the Empire." Feng Jixing, however, frowned and said, "Your Highness, this matter is too early to say. Although the Qiankuan battle formation is powerful, it is also fatal." "What is it?" Qin asked. "Physical strength." Xiangyu, who was on the side, continued the question and said, "The Qinkuan battle formation is too demanding on the physical strength of the soldiers. Constantly changing the battle formation can exhaust all the strength of a soldier in 2 hours. Moreover, the attacks of the demon race are endless, so the Qinkuan battle formation can only delay them for a moment, but can't keep the demon race in the unicorn forest." Feng Jixing nodded and said, "Just as Marquis Pingnan said, time is limited. This general can only train these 60,000 soldiers to form the Qinkuan battle formation. When their physical strength is exhausted, the Qinkuan battle formation will probably be useless. This general will send the cavalry to deal with them and use the white drill arrows left by you to kill the armored demons from afar. Together with the arrow boxes and ballistae, they will continue to consume the demon race's strength. As long as they can, we will try to buy as much time as possible for the Longdan army camp." Qin Yin gently nodded and said, "Then, I'll have to trouble General Feng." The sound of the war drums became more and more intense, and the battle seemed to be more fierce. Over the past 2 hours, numerous armored demons had been buried in the sea of fire. However, the armored demon corps continued to attack the Qinkuan battle formation as if they were inexhaustible. Many armored demons leaped into the formation and started a massacre by waving their battle blades. As for the soldiers who had run out of strength, they could only resist to the death. When more than a dozen battle formations began to shake, a layer of sweat appeared on Feng Jixing's handsome face. His arms trembled slightly and his eyes were like torches as he said, "Beat the drums, withdraw the formation. Cavalry, prepare to attack." Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. As soon as the war drums sounded 3 times, the 12 Qinkuan battle formations that had begun to shake and collapse changed rapidly. Each battle formation was divided into more than a dozen small battle formations, each holding a shield to face the enemy, but they moved back and withdrew from the battlefield step by step. This was probably the best way to reduce the loss of retreat. As a founding hero, Xiang Wentian's battle formation was so exquisite. "Get on the horse." Qin Yen turned over and mounted the warhorse. Holding the iron spear, he cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, I'm leading the army to attack." Feng Jixing also walked forward with the saber in his hand and took the warhorse from the servant, saying, "I'm going too. Your Highness, take care." Qin Yin opened her eyes wide and looked at the two, Be careful and come back alive. As the war drums sounded, the less than 40,000 heavy cavalries of the Empire stationed on the steel protective wall mounted their horses one after another and launched an attack on the armored demon legion, covering the retreat of the infantry formed by the Jianghu battle formation. From afar, a round of white drill arrows was shot, and a large number of armor demons fell into a pool of blood. However, even more armor demons rushed over, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Feng Jixing immediately urged his horse to gallop back, using the advantage of distance to continue using archer and cavalry tactics to kill armor demons. When the armor demons got close to the arrow box's firing range, they would immediately be brutally killed. The jungle was filled with a strong smell of blood. No one knew how many people and demons were killed in this battle. They only knew that there were corpses everywhere on the ground, and those armor demons' corpses that were burned in the deep pits had turned into tiny black dust and scattered in the wind. On the other side of the battle formation, the temporary camp of the armor demons. Qianfeng sat on the marshal's seat, holding the sword hilt and looking at the battle scene in the distance with a pale face. "Marshal, humans are about to reach the end of the road," a higher demon of captaincy level said with a smile. "The end of the road?" Qianfeng raised his head and looked at him, his gaze cold as he said, "There are many talents among the humans. This Feng Jixing is so proficient in the art of battle formations, how can we allow him to live in this world? Once there is a chance, we must kill Feng Jixing." Long Qianlin killed more than 20,000 armor demons of Lei Chong in the Battle of Lingnan, which was already a shame to the Protoss race. Feng Jixing made me, Qianfeng, taste the shame of failure again. I must use Feng Jixing's blood to wash away my shame. Order the Wingmen Legion to fly over their battle formation and burn the human army's food supplies along the way. Without food, I want to see how Feng Jixing can fight with me. "Yes, I understand." Captain C smiled and said, "Marshal, it seems that the Qin Empire has decided to fight with us in the Unicorn Forest. We will definitely win this battle and behead countless people. How about I send someone to Lake Lu to pick up the first princess and the little princess? After they see your great achievements, they will definitely put in a good word for you in front of the Saint Emperor. You may even have the chance to marry one of the two princesses." "No need." Qianfeng frowned and said, "Are there any movements from the Qin Empire's naval warships?" "No, the Wingmen scouts we sent haven't reported back yet." Qianfeng was shocked and said, "Idiot, quickly send an elite high demon army back to Lake Lu to protect the two princesses." How could I be so stupid? Marshal, what do you mean?" "Feng Jixing could have sent the naval warships to bypass our line of sight and attack our food supplies and the two princesses. Didn't you think of that?" A group of high-ranked demons with the rank of senior officers were stunned. In the night, the north bank of the Lu Lake was ablaze. A group of human cavalries flew by and constantly threw fire sticks into the piles of grains of demons. Piles of grains were quickly ignited. However, the armored demons didn't dare to water them at all. Their wings were flammable, and the oil in their bodies was the best material to ignite the fire. They were born to be afraid of fire, so how could they dare to extinguish it? "Deputy Commander, there are people blocking us in front. They are high-ranked demons, but there are not many of them. Kill them." Luo Yu pulled out her sword and said with a murderous look. Thousands of cavalrymen charged forward. Amidst the flames, Luo Yu could vaguely make out two sword-wielding girls among the demons. She immediately ordered, "Don't kill those two female demons, I want them alive. Kill the rest." How could dozens of high-ranked demons resist the attack of thousands of human cavalries? The hands of the two purple-eyed girls trembled a little as they held the rapier. The younger one had an extremely gentle voice as she murmured, "Sister, are we going to die here? Dying on the battlefield is the pride of the god race. Don't be afraid. I'm with you." "Okay." Chapter 433. Be careful, it's the winged people. A rain of arrows fell from the sky and landed on the crowd. Many soldiers were injured. The arrowheads used by the winged demons were very large and heavy, but the feathers were very short. Only in this way could they increase the ability to attack the ground from the air. But after all, the distance was too far. When the arrowheads fell, they were already powerless and could not cause fatal damage. They could only play the role of a nuisance. After a round of killing, Feng Jixing returned to the spectator's stand and wiped the blood on his face. A few arrows landed on his body and were bounced off by his battle armor. He said respectfully, "Your Highness, the attack of the demons seems to be more fierce on the second day." Qin Yi nodded. "General Feng, it's been hard on you." Su Yu squinted her beautiful eyes and said, "Qian Feng's strategy is not that simple. After our soldiers recovered their strength, they reformed the Jianghu battle formation, but the momentum of the demons' attack has weakened again and again. Qian Feng most likely plans to attack from other places." "That's right," Feng Jixing said. "The scouts have found new information. Qian Feng secretly ordered 2 armored demon armies to go to the north and south sides of the unicorn spirit beast. He probably wants to attack from the 2 sides of our battle formation and directly attack our command camp." Qian Feng is a cunning villain. Xiang Yu gritted his teeth. Su'er was stunned and asked, "Then what should we do?" Feng Jixing smiled faintly. "If we don't command the camp, they will lose their target. Your Highness and the other commanders will go into battle and attack the armor demon camp with Feng Jixing. Lord Chu Chu will protect your Highness. In this way, Qian Feng's plan will naturally fail." Qin Yi nodded and said, "Bring my horse." Chu Chu and the others went out one after another. This was a battle that concerned the survival of the empire. No one could stay out of it. The sound of fighting soared into the sky. More than half of the unicorn forest had become a battlefield. The smell of blood wafted for hundreds of miles. The sound of horse hooves and the raging roars of the armor demons could be heard everywhere. Nearly 300,000 human soldiers fought fiercely in the unicorn forest for 3 days. In the end, more than a third of their troops had been killed, and more than 2/3 were injured. What was even worse was that their supply route had been cut off by the winged demon army, and most of their rations had been burned. The army had already entered a phase of food shortage. Moreover, the standard arrows used in their quivers had been used up, and even their most elite weapons had been lost. At night, amidst the flickering candlelight, Feng Jixing tightened the belt on his armor. The Empire's emblem on the shoulder of his military uniform shone with a golden luster under the candlelight. He frowned and asked, "Is everything ready?" Zhang Wei cupped his fists and said, "Ready, the frontline troops have already retreated." "Where's His Highness?" Xiahou Sang personally led 3,000 Imperial Army brothers to protect him, but His Highness insisted on retreating with the army, so he didn't leave in advance. Sigh. Feng Jixing frowned. Her Highness is like a bright star that can illuminate the 3 armies and raise the morale of the Empire's soldiers. But she's being too willful at this time. If she doesn't leave, she'll drag the 3 armies down. Go immediately, protect His Highness and retreat immediately. Say that it's my order. Yes, I'll go. Zhang Wei cupped his fists and retreated. Feng Jixing walked out of the barracks with his saber in hand, only to see that the soldiers around him were already packing up and preparing to retreat. At this moment, a shout suddenly came from afar. A scout galloped over and shouted, "General Feng, something bad has happened. The demons are attacking at night." Attacking at night? How long will it take? In the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. How can they be so fast? The armor demons need at least an hour to run here. It's not the armor demons, it's the heavy cavalry of the demons. What? The demons have heavy cavalry? Yes. The scout panted and said, "At least 30,000 heavy cavalry." This lowly one vaguely saw that some of the heavy cavalry were humans. They should be formed by the slaves of the demons. Damn it. Feng Jixing mounted his horse with his saber in hand and shouted, "All troops retreat. Brothers of the 1st Battalion, stay with me to resist the enemies and cover the retreat of the other battalions. Don't take any of the supplies and provisions. Destroy all the arrow boxes and ballistae. Don't leave any for the demons." Over 5,000 heavy cavalries were quickly gathered. Under the leadership of Feng Jixing, they went straight to the surprise troops of the demons. In the distance, the armors of the heavy cavalries of the demons were shining coldly under the moonlight. They were rushing at the temporarily formed infantry defense line outside the camp. However, how could those imperial infantries be their opponents? They were all killed in the blink of an eye. Waving his wind chopper saber, Feng Jixing took the lead and rushed out. Thousands of cavalries behind him also rushed out fearlessly. In the blink of an eye, they fought with a group of high-level demons and human cavalries. Blood quickly spread in the camp. After the cavalries, the armor demons' corps quickly arrived. In the dark, it was impossible to resist the attack of the armor demons. The camp of the Imperial Army collapsed in the blink of an eye. The camp of hundreds of thousands of people was smashed. Everyone could only protect themselves and escape. Under the starlight, the flames in the camp of the Imperial Army soared into the sky. A group of Imperial guards guarded Qin Yin and rushed out of the camp. When they galloped to the edge of the unicorn forest, Qin Yin couldn't help but rein her horse. She turned around and looked at the soaring flames in the distance. Tears flowed out of her eyes. "We lost." Zhang Wei let out a long sigh and said, "What a shame." 230,000 soldiers were utterly defeated by tens of thousands of demons. They couldn't resist at all. Su Yu bit her red lips and said, "Xiao Yin, let's leave quickly. The demons must have already sent out an army to kill you." "Where's General Feng? Where's Xiang Yu and the others?" Zhang Wei said, "General Feng is leading the brothers of the 1st Battalion to bring up the rear. They should be fighting with the heavy cavalries of the demon race now. General Xiang Yu has led an army of Qihai City to break through the south. I don't know the current situation. Your Highness, let's leave quickly. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." "Where else can we go?" Qin Yin asked faintly. Su Yu said, "Further ahead is the main road to Wugu City, but once we go to Wugu City, we will lead the demons who are chasing us to Wugu City, which will lead to the fall of Wugu City. In my opinion, why don't we go north and lead the demons into the Dragon Forest? We can take advantage of the fact that they don't know the terrain to deal with them and buy more time to defend Wugu City. What do you think, Your Highness?" Qin Yin nodded. "How many people do we have left?" "There are only about 8,000 people here," Zhang Wei said. "Let's go." Under the starlight, a group of people galloped in the direction of the Dragon Forest. Along the way, the counties also sent a small number of guards to welcome the Empress, but what could they do? Looking at the flashing stars in the distance, Qin Yin blamed herself. These counties would inevitably be massacred by the demons. It was her who brought this disaster to them. But war was like this, and she couldn't do anything about it. The next morning, the sun pierced through the clouds and fell on the blood-soaked land. That night, the Imperial Army suffered a crushing defeat. Nearly half of the 300,000 troops were lost, and their vitality was greatly damaged. The horses' hooves stepped on the mottled shadows of the forest. Qian Feng pressed the hilt of his sword and urged the horse forward slowly. Behind him, a group of armor demons widened their eyes and whined. No one knew what they were saying, but they seemed extremely impatient. The chariots in the middle were filled with the corpses of human soldiers. These were the provisions of the armor demons. Crush. Qian Feng unfolded a paper scroll, on which was a map of the terrain of the northern ridge. Beside him, a high-level demon said respectfully, "Marshal, we have already won a great victory. We have beheaded countless enemies this night, and the armor demon army can already go on a rampage." Why did the marshal order them to gather, but not to let them spread out to look for food? Qian Feng pondered for a while and said, "Although the human army is weak, the military discipline is strict. The strength of one person is far from being a match for the Protoss. But what about hundreds or thousands of people? Feng Jixing's Qiankuan battle formation made us lose more than 20,000 armor demons. Maybe we should learn the tactics of human beings. I restrained the armor demons just to achieve a greater victory. Now that we have entered the core area of Tsangnan province, there is no need to kill more people. Pass down the order to gather the armor demons and continue to advance with me. Marshal, our next goal is... Qian Feng gently pointed at a small place on the map and said, "It's here. Wugu City, one of the richest cities of human beings. It is the capital of Tsangnan Province. As long as we take over Wugu City, we can nail a poisonous thorn in the territory of the Qin Empire, making them unable to pull it out." Captain C nodded and said, "I will mobilize all the armor demons and go straight to Wugu City." Qian Feng shook his head and said, "Lian Xiao, as one of the smartest generals of the Protoss, why haven't you learned how to fight a good war? If we can take Five Valleys City with less effort, then why not?" "Marshal, what do you mean?" Qian Feng's eyes flashed a cold light and said, "Select 1,000 people from our slaves, and let them wear the uniforms of Feng Jixing's subordinates, the Imperial Army. They will ride to Wugu City on horses to deceive them into opening the city gate. Then we will cooperate from the inside and the outside. The armor demon army will attack in one fell swoop. I want to take over Wugu City, one of the 7 famous cities of the Empire, without bloodshed." "Yes, Marshal." At this moment, suddenly a winged person fell from the sky. With a pale face, he cupped his fists and said, "Marshal, something bad has happened." "What's the matter? Why are you so flustered?" "Her Highness Jing and Her Highness Ning. What happened to Her Highness?" "Last night, the camp was attacked by the human army. The provisions were burned, and Her Highness Jing and Her Highness Ning were also taken away by the humans." "My God!" Qian Feng's face turned pale in an instant. He said, "Whose army is it?" "Feng Jixing's Imperial Army." "Bastard!" Qian Feng suddenly clenched his fists, his face full of killing intent. "Feng Jixing, this bastard, I will skin him alive." On the side, Captain C and Lian Xiao were dumbfounded. "Marshal, the 2 princes have been taken away. What should we do now?" "Carry on with the plan." "Yes." Chapter 434. On the 13th of April, a heavy fog shrouded the entire Five Valleys City. At the southern gate, a group of 7 Seas city guards were looking at everything in the fog. The news of the defeat of the main force of the Empire's army in the Unicorn Forest had already been sent over 2 days ago, but there was still no news until now. General Tang Di, who was guarding the city, had a grizzled beard. He was an old general who had followed Tang Lan to battle all over the place and was now guarding the Five Valleys City. "Tuck, tuck, tuck." Tang Di narrowed his eyes and said, "Who is it?" A soldier holding a pair of inferior binoculars said, "General, it seems to be a group of cavalry, wearing the imperial uniform. The fog is too thick to see clearly. Should we open the gate?" "No, wait first." "Yes." In a few minutes, a group of cavalry covered in blood galloped to the foot of the city. They were holding the imperial purple flag in their hands, and all of them wore the insignia of the imperial army. A Chiliarch carrying a spear anxiously came to the foot of the city and shouted, "Who is the general?" Tang Di walked to the edge of the battlement and cupped his fists. "Five Valleys City's 5th-rank Deputy General Tang Di is here. May I ask who is the general?" "I'm Zhou Ping, a Chiliarch under the command of Feng Jixing of the Imperial Army. We've been killed by demons. A group of armor demons are chasing after us. General Tang Di, please open the gate and save me and my brothers." "Zhou Ping." Tang Di frowned and said, "Do you have the Imperial Army token?" Zhou Ping fished out a blood-stained token from his bosom and threw it towards the city wall. Tang Di caught it and examined it carefully. "It's really someone from the Imperial Army." Zhou Ping hurriedly looked back and shouted, "General Tang, if you don't open the gate, my brothers and I can only die in this city. Please save us, the Imperial Army, save this last spark." Tang Di's eyelids trembled. "Open the gate. Archers, get ready. Once the demons come, immediately aim and shoot. We must not let the demons take a step into the Five Valleys City." The gates slowly rose, and Zhou Ping and the rest hurriedly rushed in with their weapons in hand. But the moment they stepped into the city, Zhou Ping suddenly raised his spear and stabbed a centurion to death. "Take down the city gates." He roared in a low voice. Tang Di, who was on the city wall, was shocked. God damn it, this is a group of rebel soldiers. Kill them, use your bows and arrows to kill them. But it was too late. Zhou Ping led a group of people into the city, and Zhou Ping led hundreds of heavy cavalry to the top of the city walls. With a swing of his sword, Tang Di's head fell to the ground, covered in blood. Zhou Ping raised Tang Di's head high above his head. Tang Di has already been beheaded by me. Don't be so stubborn, or you'll die together with him. Bastard traitor. The group of guards of the Five Valleys city did not care about this. One by one, they rushed up, but one by one, they fell under the blades of Zhou Ping and the other rebels. There were not many guards in the Five Valleys city, and all the elites had been transferred to defend the steel walls. The ones left to defend the city were a group of old generals and veterans. How could they be a match for Zhou Ping and the others? Unfortunately, all the old soldiers on the city walls were killed. The city gates opened, and in the fog, a group of armored demons shouted in a language that they could not understand and rushed into the city with thick weapons. The people on the streets of the city screamed and quickly became victims of the armored demons' butcher knives. Some of the armored demons even gnawed on the bodies that had not yet cooled. The demons have entered the city. The demons have killed their way into the south gate. If you are slow, you will die. The people in the city were in a panic. Like an ocean, they rushed to the east and west of the city, but they did not know that the four main gates of the Five Valleys city had been sealed, and they could not go anywhere. At the same time, the north gate of the Five Valleys city slowly rose, and the flags outside the city fluttered. The North City Guard stood respectfully on the side of the road, cupped his fists, and said, "Commander Yu, please enter the city." Lin Muyu was dressed in the white robe of the imperial forest, full of majesty. She nodded lightly and rode snow-treading into the city. She said, "Bring 10,000 soldiers into the city. Half of them will be infantry and the other half will be cavalry. The rest will be stationed outside." "Yes, Commander." Wei Chou nodded and went to make arrangements. Tang Xiaoxi blinked her eyes, looked at the Five Valleys city in the fog and said, "It always feels too quiet, so quiet that it's a little scary." Lin Muyu was also faintly uneasy, but the spiritual pulse technique had extended nearly 10 kilometers, but still could not detect any strong aura. It was really impossible to determine what was going on. Note: the north and south gates of the Five Valleys city are 30 kilometers apart. Situ-san said, "Commander, let's go to the north gate quickly. If the demons launch an attack, the north gate will be the most directly attacked." "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Full speed ahead, to the north gate." The 5,000 elite cavalry of the Longdan army camp increased their speed, and behind them were the 5,000 soldiers of the gun and shield camp of the barbarians under the leadership of Prince Huangxi. It couldn't be helped. The physique of the barbarians was tyrannical, and the weight of an adult was close to 400 kilograms. The warhorses of the endless forest could carry such a weight, but the barbarian soldiers didn't know how to ride a horse, and their combat power would be sharply reduced after riding a horse. The group of people rampaged, but they saw a continuous stream of fleeing commoners in the distance. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be vigilant, and it was also at this time that a group of imperial cavalry galloped over from afar. Each of them wore the insignia of the imperial army, and each of them was covered in blood. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp slowly stopped following Lin Muyu's movements, and the 5,000 people on the other side stopped at the same time, facing off on the street. "Commander!" Situ-san cast a questioning look at her. Lin Muyu nodded lightly, indicating for him to do as she said. Thus, Situ-san slowly urged his horse forward with his hand on the hilt of his sword, and said with a smile, "This general is the captaincy of the Longdan army camp, Situ-san, leading the Longdan army camp to reinforce the Five Valleys city. May I know who this general is?" Zhou Ping cupped his fists and said respectfully, "This general is Zhou Ping, a chiliarch of the imperial army. After the imperial army was killed and scattered, I brought my brothers to the Five Valleys city to defend, and I'm here to welcome the Longdan army camp." "Oh, a brother of the imperial army?" Situ Sen's hand was still on the hilt of the sword at his waist, and he said with a smile, "Although we're on the same side, let's use the slogan of the Imperial Army. I'll say one sentence and you say the next. A cloud-piercing arrow, come." Zhou Ping was stunned and said, "Thousands of horses? Your mother." Situ Sen raised his hand to pull out the blade, and with a kacha sound, blood splattered, and Zhou Ping's head flew into the air. Situ Sen sneered, "This is our Longdan army camp's secret code, and you dare to use it? Thousands of horses, your grandmother's leg." Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed the blade and said, "Kill, leave no one alive. They are the rebels who have defected to the demon race." Kill. Tang Zhen, Wei Chou, Feng Shi, and the other generals urged their horses to charge, while Su Jiantao carried his shield, rampaging. These rebels were originally a motley crew. How could they resist the impact of the Longdan army camp? After a round of charge, they were routed. Bang! A loud sound erupted from the crowd. It was Lin Muyu's chaos of the common people, easily tearing dozens of people into a pile of minced meat, and his body was quickly stained with blood. Tang Xiaoxi followed closely behind Lin Muyu, and one firefox seal after another fell into the crowd, killing the rebels until they were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. With these two sanctuary-level masters, the rebels were no match for them at all. "Commander!" As they were killing, a scout galloped over and said, "The demons have entered the city. At least 3,000 armored demons are wantonly killing the people in the city." "Bastard!" Lin Muyu gritted his teeth and said, "Wei Chou, take 3,000 people to the south gate, seize the gate, and close it. Don't let the demons outside the city enter again. Troops of the Manhuang tribe, get ready. It's time to test the power of the Manhuang tribe's shield." "Yes." Wei Chou led a group of people to take a detour, and Prince Huangxi also rushed over with a group of Manhuang tribe soldiers with his shield, and asked excitedly, "Commander Yu, we have a mission?" Lin Muyu pointed at the dense armor demon army in the distance and said, "Your Highness, those are the armor demons, get ready to fight. The rest of the brothers in the Longdan army camp and I will reinforce you with white drill arrows on both sides." But it seemed that the armor demons also found that there was a powerful army in the city and immediately gathered. A group of armor demons rushed over with spears and axes, roaring, "Warriors, get ready to fight." Huangxi smashed the huge and heavy shield on the ground, and a group of Manhuang tribe soldiers behind him followed suit, forming a steel wall in front of them. They slowly moved the shield forward and held the spears in their right hands, the tips of which were glowing with a faint flame, which was the effect of quenching white drill. Although the blacksmiths in Lanyan City were not as delicate and sharp as Lin Muyu's, these spears were enough to pierce through the body of the armor demons. The Manhuang tribe soldiers sped up, and the shield blocked the impact of the armor demons, which made Lin Muyu, Feng Shi, and Su Jiantao dumbfounded. The Manhuang tribe was really powerful, and this was the first time that they saw someone who could forcibly repel the fierce attack of the armor demons. The next moment, the spears pierced forward. Puff, 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 blood constantly splashed out. After a thrust, the barbarian warrior immediately pulled back his spear. His body continued to hide behind the shield. He then used the shield attack tactic to force the armor demons to retreat, and then attacked with his spear. A series of attacks directly made the group of armor demons at a complete loss, which was enough to prove the feasibility of Su Jiantao's short training. Bows and arrows. Under Lin Muyu's order, the rest of the people in the Longdan army camp came to the two sides of the battle formation, and the arrowheads of the white drill arrows were shot out fiercely. Soon, hundreds of armor demons fell into a pool of blood. Tang Xiaoxi had already entered the form of nine-tailed fox. She gently raised her hand, and a huge seal fell from the sky. Boom! The 10th heaven of fire fox seal, cosmic seal. With a strike similar to the power of stars, dozens of armor demons were smashed into pieces while flames soared into the sky. Tang Xiaoxi spun around and dodged the battle axe thrown by an armor demon. With a bang, the wall behind her was directly broken through. She couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Folding her palms together, She roared in a tender voice while golden light fell from her body like raindrops. At the same time, a mark was released. God's seal. Like the light of the oracle, it was another huge energy impact, and dozens of armor demons were quickly turned into powder. Chapter 435. The armor demons attacked fearlessly, but they all died in the hands of the Longdan army camp, the barbarian soldiers, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. When the last armor demon was beheaded, the battle was over in less than 20 minutes. Clang! The heavy iron gate fell. Lin Muyu ordered the Longdan army camp to officially take over the Five Valley City. Clap, clap, clap. A pure white bird descended from the sky and landed beside Tang Di's corpse. It kept hopping around, but it didn't receive any response. Lin Muyu stepped forward and gently picked up the messenger bird. She took off the tube and took out the letter. A line of words was carefully and clearly written on it. The Songnan army has been defeated. Please defend the Five Valley City. The demon army has gone to the Five Valley City. There are about 60,000 armor demons, 20,000 winged men and less than 10,000 high-level demons. I will lead the remaining troops to the dragon-seeking forest to protect Her Highness, Jianghu. It was signed by Jianghu. This was Xiangyu's letter. Lin Muyu frowned and passed the letter to Tang Xiaoxi, Wei Chou and others. The empire is really defeated. Wei Chou was silent. Lin Muyu bowed her head and said nothing. After a few seconds, she looked up at Tang Xiaoxi and said, Shao Shi, leave the Five Valley City to me. You lead 50,000 demon troops to the dragon-seeking forest to find Shao Yin. You must protect her. But you... Tang Xiaoxi blinked her eyes full of worry. She knew the combat power of the demon race and how terrifying 60,000 armor demons and 10,000 high-level demons were. Don't worry. Lin Muyu hugged her gently and whispered in her ear, Take my commander's seal and take the remaining 45,000 soldiers of the Longdan army camp out of the city. But Tang Xiaoxi trembled slightly. I can't let them die here. 10,000 people are enough to defend the city. No. Why not? Lin Muyu looked at her with clear eyes and said, Even though you are a princess, I still have to order you to lead the main force to the dragon forest to reinforce Shao Yin. She needs you more. As for the Five Valley City, don't worry. I have confidence in the battle against the demons. As long as I stall the demons here, it won't be too late for you, Brother Feng, and Shao Yin to reorganize the army of the empire and come to rescue me. Then you must be careful. Tang Xiaoxi didn't say anything else. She turned around and left without even looking back. She was afraid that if she looked at him one more time, she wouldn't be able to make up her mind to leave. Inside the city, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. Tang Xiaoxi had left the city. Wei Chou asked from the side, My lord, can we really defend the Five Valleys city with just 10,000 people? I don't know. Then why did you? We can't let our brothers die with us. It's not a good thing to defend the city with too many people. It will only consume more food. You haven't seen Qianfeng's despicable means of besieging the city. Yes, at this moment, a chiliarch in charge of cleaning the battlefield came forward, holding a metal nameplate in his hand and said, Commander, we found this on the trader Zhou Ping. Lin Muyu took it and looked at it. This was a nameplate that all soldiers of the empire had. It was used to identify them after they died in battle. The front of the nameplate was engraved with Chiliarch Shermin, and the back with Yangwei Legion. Suddenly, Lin Muyu couldn't help but tremble. She had also had this nameplate before. This was the nameplate issued by the Yangwei Legion when they went on an expedition to Winter Frost City. Wei Chou narrowed his eyes. Could it be that this person is from the Yangwei Legion? Shermin. Lin Muyu gritted her teeth and said, This person is Shihua's younger brother. I remember, there are still people from the Yangwei Legion who survived, although they have surrendered to the devil race and become their minions. Seducen smiled slightly. When people are about to die, they will naturally be afraid. It is conceivable that they will surrender to the devil race. Commander, you don't have to think too much. Not everyone is willing to sacrifice their lives for the empire, such as me, he. Lin Muyu glanced at him and didn't speak. This rogue captaincy was the most outstanding in terms of intelligence and military strategy in the Longdan army camp, but his behavior was also the most unruly. Let him be. Gather the remaining defenders in the city and deploy them to guard the 4 gates. Yes, Commander. 10,000 people from the Longdan army camp were stationed in the city, and there were about 5,000 defenders in the city. In the evening, a group of generals gathered in the big tent of the Longdan army camp. Under the candlelight, Lin Muyu sat motionlessly on the marshal's seat with her hand on her sword. In front of the table was a map of Tsangnan province. In the crowd, a Chiliarch of Wugu City cupped his fist and said, "I am Zhao Ritian, serving as the Chiliarch of Wugu City's Tsangnan Army Reserve Legion. At this time, I am already the person with the highest military rank among the original defenders of Wugu City. I will be at your disposal at any time." Lin Muyu looked up at him and said, "General Zhao, how much food is left in Wugu City?" "There is plenty of food, enough to last for 3 years." Zhao Ritian said confidently. "That's good." Lin Muyu said, "Pass down the order, let the people dig more ponds in their homes to store water." Zhao Ritian was stunned. "Have you forgotten how Xiangyu massacred nearly 2 million people in Wugu City?" Wei Chou said calmly, "If Xiangyu can do that, the demons can do the same." "Yes, I understand." Lin Muyu said, "In addition, move all the food in the city to the cellars and brick houses to prevent the demons from attacking from the sky. Also, start forging arrows in all the blacksmiths in the city, the more the better." "Yes. You may go. I will take my leave." Lin Muyu watched Zhao Ritian leave, then looked up at Sidu-sen and said, "General-sen, do you think this Zhao Ritian is reliable?" Sidu-sen cupped his fist and said, "Although he looks ugly, he seems loyal." "That's good." Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, "The demons are about to invade, and the people in Wugu City are in a panic. Come with me for night patrol. Don't bring too many people, just 100 will do." "Yes, Commander." The light of the torch shone all around. Many people closed their doors, and more burned paper money on the streets to mourn the dead. Today, the armor demons slaughtered at least tens of thousands of people after entering the city, which was undoubtedly another heavy blow to the hearts of the people in Wugu City. Even Feng Jixing had been defeated by Qian Feng, which made Lin Muyu very depressed. Frowning, she urged her horse to slowly follow the crowd on the main street of the city. Not long after, they entered the downtown street, where the front was brightly lit. Many people were buying food, clothes, and so on, but after the arrival of the Longdan army camp, the people all showed a look of fear. However, some people's faces were full of jealousy. Not far away, a child about 7 or 8 years old raised the carrot in his hand and smashed it. The carrot bounced off Lin Muyu's chest armor, leaving a trace of green juice on the spotless armor. Lin Muyu looked down, only to see the child's mother holding the child tightly in her arms, looking at Lin Muyu with fear. She knew that this was a high official, and perhaps she should not offend such a person in her life. Lin Muyu slowly dismounted, came to the child, squatted down and asked, "Child, why did you hit me?" The child's eyes were filled with hatred that did not match his age and said, "You trash! You are the soldiers of the empire, but you can't beat the demons. You caused my father to be killed by the demons this morning. You are all trash. You are not worthy of being soldiers of the empire." Lin Muyu looked at him with a little despair, stood up, and did not speak. The child's mother begged for mercy. "Lord, the child is not sensible. Please don't care about him." It's okay. Lin Muyu smiled and did not say anything. However, at this moment, there was a sudden buzz, and a kitchen knife flew in the air and fell toward Lin Muyu's neck, and was forcibly bounced off by the battle armor with a clang. Lin Muyu was angry in the bottom of her heart, and looked coldly at the person who threw the kitchen knife. It was an old man about 60 years old, and he said with a face full of hatred, "You imperial soldiers usually levy and collect taxes, and now that the demons are here, you only know how to hide in the city, and let us common people suffer with you. If you have the guts, go out of the city and fight with the demons. What's the point of being a tyrant in the city? A group of common people next to him echoed, shouting loudly, "Go out of the city and fight the demons. Don't implicate us. Get out of Five Valley City." Lin Muyu looked at the crowd and couldn't help laughing. There was deep disappointment in her eyes. She turned over and mounted the horse and said indifferently, "If I had known that I would be protecting idiots like you, I wouldn't have to risk my life." At this time, a woman walked forward and said with a pious look in her eyes, "Lord, you have bled and sweated in order to protect the people of the empire. They are actually just angry because they lost their loved ones. Please forgive them, Lord, don't punish them. Five Valley City has suffered too much, please." Another man holding a torch said, "That's right, my lord. I'm a retired veteran. I used to be a soldier guarding the border, but now I'm just a night watchman. Lord Commander, please don't vent your anger on these people. They're just blinded by anger." "No, I won't vent my anger on them." Lin Muyu tried to maintain a gentle expression. She knew that once she got angry here, it would not only affect herself, but the people of the empire. But at this time, the old man who threw the kitchen knife found a brick out of nowhere, rushed over and shouted, "You minions of the emperor, get out of Five Valley City." The brick hit straight at Situ Senior, and Situ Sen's eyes were indifferent, and he waved the sword at his waist like lightning. Suddenly, a head flew into the sky, and blood slowly flowed down the blade. He said indifferently, "It's fine if you provoke a good person like the commander, but why do you have to provoke a bad person like me?" Chapter 436. Situ Senyu. Lin Muyu gritted her teeth. All the commoners at the side were shocked. No one had thought that these soldiers would really dare to kill people in the city. Situ Sen slowly sheathed his blood-stained sword and said calmly, "Commander, Situ Sen is willing to accept any punishment." "Guards." Lin Muyu's eyes were cold. "Put Situ Sen into the death row." "Yes." Two Longdan army camp soldiers stepped forward and removed Situ Sen's military emblem, then brought him to the camp. But everyone knew that there was no death row in the Longdan army camp. Facing the crowd of shocked commoners, Lin Muyu dismounted and held the old man's head in her hands. She said to the soldiers beside her, "Bury this old man well. He will not die in vain. Take out 100 Jinin coins from our funds to compensate his family." "Yes, Commander." Wei Chou cupped his fists and nodded in acknowledgement. Lin Muyu gently placed the old man's head beside the corpse, cupped her fists at the surrounding commoners, and said, "I am Lin Muyu, the commander of the Longdan army camp of the empire. I hereby promise everyone that the Longdan army camp came to Five Valleys City to fight against the demon race. As long as we are here, no one will be able to touch Five Valleys City. Please rest assured that the Empire's soldiers will die for the Empire. So, no one is allowed to attack the Empire's soldiers. Otherwise, they will be punished with a heavy crime." The crowd of commoners nodded one after another, a trace of respect appearing in their eyes. Lin Muyu turned around and mounted her horse, then quickly left with the crowd. Wei Chou chased after her and smiled. "Madam, the speech just now was not bad." Lin Muyu nodded. "After returning to the camp, release Situ Senator otherwise, who will fight." I understand." In the moonlit night, hundreds of scouts from the Longdan army camp were released from the city. Everyone in the camp fell asleep in their pajamas. Qianfeng's army was about 12 hours away from the city, which was enough for everyone to rest. Outside the commander's tent, Lin Muyu stood like a statue under the starlight. Strands of starlight seeped into his body. The astral power swirled in his ocean of qi, then turned into soul power and condensed in his ihai. He could feel that the astral power in his body was getting stronger and stronger, as if he was about to reach a breakthrough. Closing his eyes, the star jade do qi circulated around his body, causing his cloak to flutter in the wind. Wei Chou and citizens sat on the haystack far away from the commander's tent, watching the starlight and drinking wine in silence. They did not disturb Lin Muyu's practice, as if they were only there to protect Lin Muyu. Until dawn, the stars in the sky had dimmed significantly, but the astral power around Lin Muyu's body had become even more dazzling. His spiritual sense had already sunk into his I, his feet stepping on the monstrous waves in his I. Strands of starlight fell into his palms, and then under his control, they floated gently. One by one, the stars rapidly transformed, and with a whoosh, an elegant flower petal grew out of one of the balls of starlight, followed by another and more. In the blink of an eye, this ball of starlight had transformed into a star lotus full of astral power, constantly lingering around Lin Muyu, nourishing his I. Lin Muyu could not help but close his eyes, enjoying the star power cleansing his I. Ever since the 7 luminaries demon emperor had ascended, he had not experienced this kind of cultivation baptism for a long time. One by one, the stars transformed into lotus flowers, lingering around Lin Muyu's spiritual sense. In reality, the stars seeped out of Lin Muyu's body, slowly transforming into a steel star lotus that lingered, as if to protect its master, putting on a star lotus armor for Lin Muyu. Oh my god, Citizen was dumbfounded. Wei Cho, did you see that? The martial arts that the commander is practicing is really mysterious. I, Citizen, have never seen such a mysterious martial art in my life, nor have I felt such strong astral power. Wei Cho nodded and said in a low voice, the commander is a genius, and under the opportunity to learn such a unique skill, it is the Empire's fortune. You only know how to flatter. Hee. Not long after, Lin Muyu slowly opened her eyes, and her spiritual sense returned from her sea of consciousness, only to feel that her strength had reached a new level. She gently opened her palm, and a dazzling star lotus condensed in the center of her palm. Then, more and more star lotuses slowly lingered around her arm, protecting her body. It was equivalent to adding another layer of defense outside of her battle armor. Finally, the 4th technique of the star mantra, Star Lotus Armor, was mastered. Lin Muyu was extremely excited. Mastering the Star Lotus Armor didn't just mean that her defensive abilities had improved, she could clearly feel that the astral power in her body had increased to a new level. In the future, the power of the initial starlight, 5 mountains descending from the heavens, and other techniques would also be greatly enhanced. Just as the 7 luminaries demon emperor said, a technique was a technique, and the level of one's own strength was the most important. If one's strength wasn't enough, no matter how profound the technique was, it would only be for show. Congratulations, Commander! Wei Cho jumped down from the haystack, a smile on his face. Congratulations, Commander! You've made a lot of progress in your cultivation. Lin Muyu turned to Wei Cho and Sidu Sen, a smile on her face. You two are still here. Thank you for guarding me. What are you saying, Commander? We're just secretly learning from you. Sidu Sen was too honest. He spread his hands and said, it's a pity that the technique you're cultivating is too profound. Wei Cho and I want to secretly learn from you, but we don't have the strength to learn it. You want to learn the star mantra? I'll teach you. Lin Muyu smiled. Sidu Sen was taken aback. Commander, are you really going to teach me the star mantra? Why not? From today onwards, I'll teach you the basic circulation method. It's up to you how far you can go. Wei Cho, do you want to learn it? Wei Cho shook his head. My cultivation is naturally far from general sense. It's better to concentrate on my own martial arts. All right. Suddenly, a rider galloped in from outside the camp, holding a war flag in his hand. He said, "Commander, the demons have appeared 20 miles north of Five Valleys City. They will definitely arrive in Five Valleys City within an hour." Lin Muyu clenched her fist and said, "There's still time. Pass down my order. Everyone in the Longdan army camp is to go to the city wall. The Spirit Fire Department is to prepare food immediately and send it to the camp." The wind whistled past, blowing away the fog. In the east, the sun burst out as usual, but the sun probably did not know that a battle was silently descending. Lin Muyu came to the city wall with a long sword and looked into the distance. Five Valleys City had a wide field of vision. She could already see the black mass of the demon army in the distance. There were countless of them. Qianfeng was really going to risk his life. Looking into the distance, Su Jiantao could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said, "Commander, Qianfeng still has at least 100,000 demon soldiers. We only have less than 20,000 people. Even with the protection of the city, I'm afraid we can't hold on for too long." "It won't take too long." Lin Muyu's eyes were indifferent. Qianfeng dares to use the main army to surround Five Valleys City, which is tantamount to giving Feng Jixing a chance to breathe. The Imperial Army can make a comeback. If Qianfeng does not surround Five Valleys City, we will kill our way out of the city and attack the demon army from the rear. Together with Feng Jixing, we can also make Qianfeng suffer a fate worse than death. Su Jiantao was stunned. He cupped his fists and said, "Commander really thinks much further than me." Dong, 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 the war drums thundered. The demons had indeed made a posture of besieging the city. Tens of thousands of armored demons guarded the four gates of Five Valleys City, while the high-level demons rode their horses and galloped outside the city. They seemed to be very busy. The stars in the sky were all winged people, but they did not approach. It seemed that they were also afraid of a godly archer like Wei Chou in the Longdan army camp. "How many arrow boxes are there in the city?" Lin Muyu asked. "Not a single one." Wei Chou shook his head and said, "Only our Longdan army camp has brought 200 of them. The arrow boxes are high-grade goods." The defenders of Five Valleys City are all old, weak, sick, and disabled. How are they qualified to be equipped with arrow boxes? "I see." Lin Muyu smiled bitterly. "When I heard this news, my tears fell." Wei Chou and Sidu Sin both laughed. On the side, Sidu Shui smiled and said, "Commander, you still have the mood to joke at this time. It seems that you really have a card up your sleeve." "It's not that I have a card up my sleeve. I have no confidence at all." Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and looked at the demon battle formation in the distance. She said, "It just seems that Qianfeng does not intend to attack the city by force. He only intends to besiege the city. But they are too far away from the city. It doesn't seem like they are going to attack the city. Moreover, there are no siege ladders or siege chariots. Qianfeng does not intend to attack the city at all. Then what should we do? No hurry. Let's wait and see Qianfeng's next move." At noon, the demonic army surrounded the Five Valleys City. However, a messenger bird slowly landed on Lin Muyu's shoulder. Its feathers were pure white and looked very familiar. "Little White?" Lin Muyu asked in surprise. This messenger bird actually jumped forward and stood very intimately next to Lin Muyu's cheek. It really was Little White. Lin Muyu quickly untied the letter. On it was Chu Yao's delicate handwriting. "You, the staff of the Spiritual Medicine Department, and I were killed and separated by the demon army. Currently, we are protected by the army led by Feng Jixing. General Feng has gathered 50,000 soldiers and hoarded them in Lai City, upstream of Daojiang. I don't know your situation, but Little White will definitely find you. I hope you will reply." Chu Yao looked at Chu Yao's handwriting. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel warm. She gently stroked Little White's head and said, "Prepare a pen and paper." "Yes." Taking the pen and paper from Wei Chou, Lin Muyu quickly replied, "I led 10,000 Longdan army camp to guard Five Valleys City. It has been surrounded by 100,000 demon army. They haven't attacked the city yet. Tell Brother Feng not to act rashly. In the direction of the dragon-seeking forest, Xiao Shi led 90,000 soldiers to welcome Xiao Yin. There shouldn't be a problem. Sister Chu Yao, be careful. Lin Muyu. After putting away the letter, Little White flew to the north like a sharp arrow. Lin Muyu didn't ask for anything else. She could only pray that Little White could safely pass through the demon army's defense line. However, Little White had undergone special training and could fly to a very high altitude. It should be fine if the winged people couldn't reach it. Lai City? Wei Qiu looked at the letter and said, Lai City is just a small county city. Its population doesn't even have 100,000 people. Commander Feng is stationed there, so I'm afraid he can't help us much. Yes, but we don't have any other choice. Yes. Not far away, Feng Shi flew over and said, Master, there is a demon messenger outside the north gate. He said that it's a letter from Demon Marshal Qianfeng to you. However, he must see you in person to open it. Got it. I'll go over now. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.